champions? Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
OTB Live. Never miss the action right here. Every Saturday and Sunday on Off the Ball.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yes, indeed. OTB AM on this beautiful Friday morning. I hope it is wherever it is that you are at this morning. From Adrian and Eoin, who'll be joining us shortly. Very good morning to you. Delighted to have you along with us. We've lots coming up over the course of the morning. We are going to be getting straight in just a couple of moments' time to our very latest in that Thursday night series that I'm sure you've seen over the last number of weeks with John Giles, where he's, along with Nathan, picking his all-time teams. This time, it's the one I think that everybody's really been waiting for, his Leeds 11. And will John include himself in midfield? That's coming your way in just a couple of moments' time. Interesting stuff from John Giles on with Nathan last night. Elsewhere, coming up at the show over the next 2 hours and 2.5 hours, in fact. After John, we're going to be getting stuck into the back pages of the sports newspapers this morning. It isn't just coverage of speculation about when sport is going to return, but it is mostly. There are some other stories as well, so we'll get you those coming your way just after 8 o'clock. The Irish Rugby Professional 15 that Neil Tracy picked during the week has caused something of a stir, it has to be said, and Alan Quinlan is going to give us a reaction to that after about 8:30. Will he ditch out all those Leinster players in favour of Munster players? You might be surprised. It'll be coming your way at about 8:30. That's Alan Quinlan. Podrick Mannion, the Galway hurler, is going to join us just after 10 to 9. He's involved in the latest charity fundraiser, so we're going to get Podrick's thoughts on that and find out how he's getting on as well during lockdown. You'll wonder, I mean, you probably won't, but why I'm wearing this Westmeath jersey? Well, it is the turn of the Lake County to put themselves up on Mount Rushmore. Our biggest issue is we don't have much of a mountain, but there's lots to come on that. I'm going to be making my selections. Conor Moore, Conor Sketches is going to join us as well. A proud Mullingar man is going to join us to give us his perspective on exactly how good or bad my selections are, and the one that he wants to put up on Mount Rushmore as well. So that's all coming your way just after 9 o'clock. And then we've got a crappy quiz as always for you. Myself, Jared, Nathan, going head to head with Eoin. I'm sure it'll all be extremely seamless. That's the crappy quiz at 20 to 10. You're welcome along to OTB AM. We've plenty to come. Please do keep in contact with us over the course of the morning. We're with you with plenty of live stuff in just a few moments' time. But before that, John Giles with Nathan last night picking his all-time Leeds 11.
What's been a very good distraction for people and has been getting a great response over the past 5 or 6 weeks is every Thursday night you've been picking your all-time 11s from a variety of different clubs. We've been through Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, and today we get to one that everybody's been waiting for, John, which is your very own Leeds United. So you're going to pick your all-time Leeds 11, and really there's been 3 periods of success for Leeds United because it's a club that really, until Don Reevy arrived, never had a great history. It goes on and has that decade while you're there of unbelievable success, winning league titles, getting to a European Cup final, winning FA Cups and competing year in, year out. There's the group that won the league in the early 90s, and then David O'Leary's side that got to a Champions League semi-final and went so close to winning quite a few trophies. So there's quite a few generations there for you to choose from.
There is, Nathan, and it's never easy picking these teams. But, I mean, apart from one player, which is the goalkeeper, Nigel Martin, I picked the lads that I played with.
Right.
Now, I'll explain this. I know they've been very, very good players. They did go on to win the league with Howard Wilkinson in 1990, with Gordon Strachan and Gary McSallock, Gary Speed, David Batty, Tony Rigo, Chris White, a lot of terrific, Chris Fairclough, terrific players. But the reason I picked all the lads from my time was because they did it for at least 11 years, Aidan.
Yeah.
But it's a while back. But they put Leeds on the map from a team that didn't have a terrific history. They weren't a traditional team like Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool. When Shankly took over Liverpool, they were in the second division. But he did have a history that when he did get them going, that the crowds were backing that. And so did Jock Stein and Bill Nicholson. Don Reevy didn't have that, so he had to build a team from scratch, which went on to do, for at least 11 years. So I'm making my apology before I start. So I'm picking Nigel Martin in goal.
Okay, so Nigel Martyn is one of the more modern players in this Leeds United side. Why Martyn ahead of the goalkeepers from your era?
Well, we had Gary Sprake, who started off his career as a terrific goalkeeper, Nathan. I think he lost his nerve somewhere along the way and made quite a few mistakes before David Harvey came into the team. So I would rule Gary Sprake on that. He was very good in the early days when we got promotion, and he was a regular. He was a very, very talented individual. But I think he lost his nerve and he started to make mistakes, and Don stayed with him a long time and cost us quite a few trophies, I must say, at the time. So David Harvey then came into the team, who was a solid goalkeeper, very steady, didn't make mistakes. So I put Nigel Martyn. I think he was an outstanding goalkeeper for Leeds at the time he was there. So I put him in goal instead of the two lads I played with most of the time.
On Gary Sprake then, when things weren't going well at that period, and maybe there was a loss of trust from the outfield players for what he could do, was that communicated to Don Reevy? Like, did he understand that the players felt that this was a weak link, or was there a bit of a blind spot with the goalkeeping position?
Well, it was his decision, Nathan. Well, I felt as a player, if I never interfered or tried to influence Don Reevy in any way. And in fact, I don't think he would have been influenced. I think he'd know through Big Jack and Jack making faces and calling Gary Sprake a good few names and that I think he knew how we felt. But like my take on it with Gary Sprake, Don was a man who put a lot of emphasis on loyalty, right? So when Don took over Leeds first, he wasn't doing very well, Nathan. And in fact, he was doing poorly. So he decided at one stage, I think it was against Swansea, to take a gamble and put a few of the young lads in. And one of them was Gary Sprake, Paul Reaney, Norman Hunter, probably Terry Cooper, Paul Madeley. He put a lot of young lads in it, and they started to do well. And Gary Sprake was very, very good. He's an outstanding goalkeeper. So when the time came after a few years where he wasn't doing it, I think Don felt that he owed him some loyalty to keep him in the team. That's what I believe. And it got to the stage where we played the semi-final of the Cup in 1972 against Birmingham, and he dropped Gary that day.
Right.
Dropped him and put David Harvey in, and he never got back in the team again.
Okay. So Gary Sprake,
that's what I believe. He was a very talented goalkeeper. There's no doubt about that. But he did get to the stage where he made a lot of mistakes for us, Nathan.
So Nigel Martyn is the goalkeeper, 7 years at the club, and part of that David O'Leary's side as well that did so well in European football. Your back four then?
My back four is Paul Reaney, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter and Paul Madeley.
Was that a straightforward selection for that back four?
No, it was because Terry Cooper comes into it. You know, Terry unfortunately did get an injury 2 or 3 years before he left the club. But Terry was, like, the reason I put Paul Madeley in, because he never had any really regular position, but he could play in so many positions, Nathan, that it was like if somebody's picking to me, if I go to Dublin and say, I'll pick the Leeds team for you, Terry Cooper will always be in it. And Paul Madeley is never in it.
Right.
Because he didn't have a regular position. You know?
He was the Gary Breen, a team of Paul Madeleys, because he played in every position, it seems, aside from goalkeeper. Played as a striker in the 68 League Cup final against Arsenal, scored the only goal?
I don't think so.
No.
No. I think, we beat Arsenal 1-0. Terry Cooper scored that goal. He played centre forward a couple of times for us, Nathan. But he was so versatile, he played in the middle of the field, and he'd wear number 11 and number 7, but he never actually played on the wings.
Right.
But he right back, any of the centre-back positions, midfield, he was just so versatile that when people are picking the best team for me, when I'm in Dublin, he's never in it. So I put him in at left back because he was as good at left back because Terry Cooper had been injured for a couple of seasons. And he played there on a fairly regular basis.
I know the transfer market wasn't anywhere near what it is today, but it is incredible how many games that back four played for the club. Paul Reaney, 750 appearances. Jack Charlton, all-time record at 773. Paul Madeley, in a variety of different positions, over 700 appearances as well. Norman Hunter, over every single one of those players, over 700 appearances for the club.
Yeah, well, that's why I have to pick them, Nathan. Regardless of, I know that the terrific players came afterwards, like Rio Ferdinand and lots of players not lots of players like him, but Gordon Strachan, Gary Ballister. These were terrific players, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to them, but these lads, like I'm one of the lesser ones. I only made 525 appearances.
What were you doing?
So I was there late. Like Norman in that play Jack was there all his career. See, I came when I was 22. So I was three or 4 years behind, Billy Bremner and Norman Hunter and that. But it shows you the times they were, how long they were at the club and how many games they played. That I find it very difficult to put anybody else in. That a lot of people might think, well, they should be in them, and that happens when you're picking a team. But these lads did it for so long and were so successful over a long period of time, Nathan. When the only time other trophy they won was under Howard Wilkinson, and that was win the league. I think in 1990, 92. But when these lads played, if you go back on their career, and I'll just do a little bit, I don't want to bore you. 2 league titles between at 69 and 74, 1 FA Cup in 68, 2 Fairs Cups in 68 and 71, 1 League Cup in 68, promotion in 63, 64, 3 FA Cup finals, 5 second divisions, 5 second in the league, finalists in the European Cup, the Fairs Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup. So we won a lot of trophies, and people say, we should have won a lot more than we did. But we were there year in and year out, and mostly with the same players, Nathan. So that's why I feel obliged to have to pick all the lads that I played with. And I don't want to be disrespectful to some of the other terrific players that played for Leeds later on.
They should have won more argument, because you've gone through some of the roll of honour there of that team, of a couple of league titles, FA Cup, League Cup, but there's 5 runners-up in the league in that decade. There's 3 beaten FA Cup finals, lost a European Cup final, a UEFA Cup Winners' Cup final. Hey, was it a team that should have achieved more, or a team that was just unfortunate not to win more?
It's difficult to know, Nathan. Like Shankly had a great record at Liverpool, right? We won as many, the same amount of major trophies as Bill Shankly. But when you get to the final of competitions, like for your record and your reputation, you'd be better off not getting to the cup finals. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't get to the cup final, you don't lose it. But we were getting there all the time, year in, year out, year in and year out. Like Manchester City, for example, I think won the league in 68, the cup in 69, the Cup Winners' Cup in 70, and the League Cup in 70. So they won 4 trophies like in 3 seasons, right? But they were gone, Nathan.
Yeah.
We did it for 11 years. Week in, week out, week in, week out, and losing to Sunderland, which was a disgrace, and then coming back to go 29 games unbeaten in the league to go on and win the league the following year. So, of course, you could look and say, they could have won more, should have won more. But you had to get there in the final to be runners-up. And it took a bit of doing to do that. We were never out of the top 4 for 10 seasons, Nathan.
Jack Charlton alongside Norman Hunter at centre half. Obviously, so many of our conversations around Jack Charlton are around his time as Ireland manager. In terms of how good a player he was and been the centre back in that England World Cup winning side in 1966, in that generation, and you often talk about the defenders of that generation, how good was he? Where did he rank?
I'd say Jack was the best centre half in what was the first division in those days for 5 years. Right.
What sort of player was he?
He was a big centre half who weren't expected to get on the ball much in those days. Nathan, the pitches were bad and all that carry on. But Jack was a good header of the ball. He read it quite well, and he was deceptively quick. He was a big, lanky fella, as you know, and could cover the ground well, really well. So when he was, I think he was the best centre half for at least 5 seasons in what was then the first division. He was quick. He deceptively quick. If somebody there was a ball over the top, and it was going down the line. He was very seldom beaten for pace. Looked a bit awkward, but could cover the ground. Good in the air, and good on both feet, Nathan, for clearing the ball.
Yeah.
He was good on his left side and his right side to get it away.
Did winning the World Cup change him at all?
No, he never ever bought a drink. so that never changed him. No.
Yeah, well, what's the old story here that when he was in the pub, he'd write a cheque, and because he was so famous, nobody'd ever cash it?
That's right. Yeah, I heard that. I'd say it was true, too. Jack was always, we were on a night out. A couple of lads warned me when I first got there. He says, be careful when you go out. He said, Jack will tap you up. And he did, but he never paid it back. You had to get used to him, Jack, now, have you got a fiver on you?
Yeah.
I don't have a look, Jack. No, I haven't. No.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, "Oh, okay." But
when he's towering over you, you couldn't really question him too much.
Well, you didn't want to, especially when he caught the new guys.
Yeah.
He'd always catch the new guys. We never thought anything of it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But you never did with Jack anyway. That's the way he was.
All right, so the goalkeeper Nigel Martin, the back four Paul Reaney, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter and Paul Madeley. We need to take a quick break, John, and we'll get on to the midfield then.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
All this week, News Talk and Bank of Ireland have come together to recognise our community heroes. Here's just one of the groups Bank of Ireland is supporting with the €1 million emergency funding donated via the Community Foundation for Ireland.
I'm Mark Mellett, Director of Fundraising at the Irish Cancer Society. Cancer patients and their families need our help now more than ever before. This support means we can continue to deliver vital services like our volunteer driver service, which brings cancer patients to and from their chemotherapy treatments during the crisis. We also have been able to extend existing services and add new services to help cancer patients at these very difficult times.
If you're a charity or community group who's doing all you can to get through these unprecedented times, go to newstalk.com/communityheroes and tell us your story.
At Bank of Ireland, we want our customers and colleagues to stay safe and well. Now more than ever, it's important to know that your financial well-being is our priority. We've a range of supports available for our personal and business customers with easy online applications. Our dedicated staff are working to support you. But if you're cocooning or self-isolating at home, you can now nominate a family member or trusted friend to do your banking for you. We're also giving a €1 million emergency fund to support our communities right now. To find out more, visit bankofireland.com. Take care. Bank of Ireland. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Michael promised he'd teach the kids to fly their blue kite the next sunny day they had.
There's a knack to it. Run as fast as you can. Let the wind catch it. Give it more string, Molly. That's it.
Always ask yourself the question.
Are you sure it's safe?
When flying kites, drones or remote control planes, always look out for overhead electricity wires. Stay safe. Stay clear of electricity wires. For emergencies, call 1850 372 999. ESB Networks, serving all electricity customers.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Eoin.
All right, welcome back. John Giles is still with us on the line. He's picking his all-time Leeds United 11. John, I was looking around online earlier today, and there have been many all-time Leeds 11 picked over the last few decades, including by the club themselves, and you're in every single one of them. So we'll forgive you if you want to put yourself in midfield in this one.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I'd rather talk about the other players, Nathan.
We'll have to have a 12th man then in this team because, as I say, I think all Leeds supporters would most definitely have you in there. So,
well, that'll be very good. But self-praise is no recommendation, Nathan. No, I appreciate that, but I'd rather pick the team.
So who is your midfield?
Well, I've got Billy Bremner, of course, and Bobby Collins.
Okay. So yourself, Bobby Collins and Billy Bremner, when you arrived at the club, did the three of you play the midfield together?
Yeah. When I first went, I left Manchester United in '63, and Bobby Collins was already there, I think a year or two before that. So I was playing on the right, well, mostly on the right side, outside right, but right side of midfield. Bobby Collins and Billy.
Collins.
Three midgets.
But you could pack a bit of a punch, I think it was fair to say. And like Bobby Collins, Don Reevy would say, was in many ways his best signing because it was a player he needed at that time to set the agenda for what he wanted Leeds to be. And it seemed he was an incredibly tough player. And the people's perception of Leeds seemed to change when Bobby Collins came to the club.
He was a great player. He was a hero of mine because he was a great player for Celtic for 10 years.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, the Celtic League used to come over every 2 years. And Bobby Collins was always in that team. That was a great Celtic player. And then he came to Everton when he was 27, and I think he was there for 5 years. And then came to Leeds when he was 32. Bobby Collins started the great team, the great club, and winning club at Leeds, in my opinion. He was a great attitude. There's an old saying in football: if you get an experienced player in the club, he's great for the club. If you get an experienced player who's not of the right character, it's bad for the club. Bobby Collins was a great character in terms of match in, match out, training. He set an example for all the young players at Leeds at that time. And I was a bit older. I was 22 when I came to Leeds. But Norman Hunter, Paul Madeley, Terry Cooper, Paul Reaney, he set the trend for that club in a big way. He was huge, and he was a great mentor for me. I came from Manchester United. I played on the right wing, but I was always a midfield player. But I was only 22, so I think 2 or 3 years with Bobby Collins. And when Bobby Collins got injured, I moved into his position. But I was ready to do it then, Nathan, because I learned so much from him. But he set the trend, there's no doubt. That was the major signing for Leeds. And one of the reasons I went to Leeds from Manchester United is because they were then in the second division. Because I knew if Bobby Collins was there, they're doing something right.
Right.
And he was great.
And all that you learned from him, was that from watching him and the way he behaved, or would you sit down and talk football and talk about his philosophy and try and pick apart what he knew? No, I just watched him. Right. I just watched him, Nathan. I mean, I was always a midfield player. I played at Manchester United on the right wing because I had to, and Don Reevy signed me as a right winger. But I was always a wanted to be a midfield player. But he was a great influence. I didn't talk to Bobby much about football at all, but I watched him. I played with him. I saw what he did. I saw his attitude to training, his attitude to playing. Was top class. Generally, when these teams are picked, it is yourself and Billy Bremner, obviously, who are the midfield partnership. How long did it take yourself and Bremner to forge an understanding where, like, it seemed one of you always knew what the other one was doing on the pitch at all times? Like, you've touched on this before, that if one went forward, one stayed back, that there was just this sort of telepathic understanding. How long on the pitch together did it take for that understanding to come about? 5 minutes. Really? Yeah. Well, Billy was a natural footballer, and I think I was a natural footballer, and you just know what the player's going to do and what you're going to do, and that, Nathan. You can't practice it, there's nothing in football you can go to the practice ground, because when you're playing in a match, things happen that you don't expect to happen all the time because you're playing against the opposition. So you have to adjust to it straight away, right? And the main thing is playing in the middle of the field, I found anyway, as a midfield player, that if you're in a tight situation, can you get out of it? Because like Billy Brown or anybody else can't tell me if I'm in a tight situation. Well, they can't to make a position to receive the ball, but you have to get out of it. And the same with Billy. And luckily enough, between and Bobby Collins, if we were in a tight situation, we'd get out of it and then we go and play. But when you're playing with good players, great players like Collins and Bremner, you can't practice anything. Well, you can, but you don't have to practice anything, Nathan. It happens instinctively, and that's what makes really good players. You find Messi playing now. A lot of time Messi in a tight situation doesn't know what he's going to do when he gets the ball. But he works it out very quickly. That's what. And bad players don't work anything out. Whereas Bremner and myself, we were near each other in the middle of the field. Of course, when he saw me in trouble, he'd get close to me. We were close to me to play a little 1-2, and now you're out of it. But that's instinctive as well. You can't practice it now. And you can't go on the pitch with your colleagues or the people you want to play and say, look, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And we want you to try and stop it. Because when you get onto the pitch to play,
you don't know what you're going to do a lot of the time when the ball comes. A lot of the times you do, which is pretty straightforward, but a lot of times you don't. But we just had this, Billy and myself just had this natural, instinctive thing to do. When he was in trouble, I'd be near him, and vice versa. And Billy's control was terrific. He scored an awful lot of them, but he was a great player. He was the most confident player I ever played with, Nathan.
Right. Arrogant?
Well, he could be.
Right.
But he could do it.
Yeah, he could back it up.
He could back it up. But in the dressing room beforehand, Billy was always going to be the star player in his head.
Okay.
Always. And a lot of the times he was, Nathan. But very, 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 very confident. Very, very confident lad. Bit of a show off, but could do it.
And how did that sit with you then, playing alongside him in midfield?
I had no problem with him. He could. I never bothered whether I was going to be the star. I wasn't going to be the star, Nathan. But the thing is, Billy produced. I didn't mind. I didn't care. Like, Billy was cocky. I wasn't cocky. I would be confident, but I wouldn't be cocky. Billy was cocky, but he produced, Nathan. I mean, if he was cocky and didn't produce, then you could say he's a bit of a spoofer. But he produced all the time.
There's obviously a certain amount of footage of that era, and people have seen bits and pieces of Billy Bremner. What was his greatest strength as a player?
Well, first of all, his confidence. He was always going to play well, and he had an ability, I think, to score important goals, terrific goals, in important matches.
Right.
I think 3 of the semi-finals we got to, he scored the winning goals in 3 of them. He scored at Wembley in the first cup final we played in. Semi-finals, I think he scored three goals in semi-finals we won. But Bremner and I scored 115 goals each night in from midfield.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And he scored more spectacular goals than I did. But he just didn't do it when you were winning 3-0 or 4-0. He was doing it in big matches where they really counted.
We better move on time-wise.
Okay.
Who else is in your midfield?
That's it. Two
midfield. With those two, that's all you needed.
That's all we needed.
So we're going all out then, because there was a lot of great attacking players of that Leeds generation as well.
Yeah.
Who have you gone with?
I've gone with Peter Lorimer.
Okay.
On the right, Alan Clark and Mick Jones up front.
Yep.
And Eddie Gray on the left wing, on the left side.
Talk to me about Eddie Gray then, as a player, and what type of player he was. Scored a lot of goals, made a huge amount of appearances for Leeds as well down through the years, and is always ranked highly when you're talking about their greatest ever players. What sort of player was Eddie Gray?
Eddie was originally a midfield player, left-footed lad, great control, and because Billy Bremner and I were playing in midfield, Tom played him on the left wing, and he was a brilliant dribbler. Like Leeds used to call him the Leeds George Best. Okay. He had a lot of injuries, Nathan, actually, in his time with us. He had a lot of serious injuries, but came back from, again, a terrific lad, Eddie, with great control. He could go past people. You only had to get the ball out to Eddie, and he was on his way. But like they used to say in those days, wingers are brainless wingers. Eddie was anything but. He was a very, very intelligent player who was playing on the left wing, Nathan. Great control, and could go past people and make goals, score goals. And a great attitude to it as well. Great attitude. Don
Reevy said of Eddie Gray, if he played on snow, he wouldn't leave footprints.
Well, that's true. He was quite a big lad, Eddie, but deceptively quick, but great control of the ball, and could go past people. Like nowadays, you don't get many wingers, Nathan, and if you do, then there's not many going past people, you know. Whereas if you were playing like good play, usually goes out to the wingers. And you get it out to Eddie, and he'd do his stuff. He'd take the full-back on straight away. He was complete opposite to Peter. You know, Peter actually Peter scored 270 goals from Leeds from the right side, sort of winger, right side midfield, right side. And he was a natural striker, Peter, but he played on the right wing because that's the only way he could get in the team. And he scored. But Peter could score as many goals and maybe more. He scored more than Eddie, and sometimes would make more because he didn't have to beat somebody, Nathan. He would come up the left back and he'd get a cross in. He was a beautiful crosser of the ball, kick of the ball in his right foot. So he didn't actually have to beat anybody to get good crosses in for Mick Jones and Alan Clark in those days.
Both Eddie Gray and Peter Lorimer score of great goals as well. I was watching some goals from Eddie Gray earlier today. One he scored against Burnley, where he must have dinked in and out about 6 times before smashing a shot past the keeper.
Somebody said he beat half the people at the game.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
There's a growing hostility towards cyclists. We're somehow seen as a nuisance, when in fact we're just people trying to get to work.
I've never ever gotten one bad word said to me about my sexuality, or from the opposition, or from, actually in one match I was nearly, the girl was marking me so tightly I was like, I have a girlfriend.
I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, and that doesn't worry me. I know I can play good enough golf.
Don't miss the panel every Saturday afternoon, only on Off the Ball.
OTB AM.
Yes, it's OTB AM. It's Friday morning. Hope you enjoyed that chat with John Giles there. Really interesting stuff on John about his all-time Leeds 11. Maybe some surprising calls in there. Owen Shane, good morning to you.
Very good morning, Adrian. How are things?
Sweaty palms on. Won't lie to you. No, not normally that nervous sort of coming on here on a Friday morning. Take it in our stride, don't we? Like, it's, you know, a few guests on, talk about the sport, let people know what's happening in the newspapers, a few comments, pretty straightforward. But sweaty palms this morning, on.
Very rarely do you have to represent your county like you're representing them this morning.
Yeah, it does feel as if, you know, it's sort of the morning of heading off to Croke Park. You'll be all too familiar with this, and I won't be all that familiar with it at all. Other than back in the day, in the mid-2000s, when Westmeath actually had a decent team, should have got way further than they did. They really should have got way further than they did. There was such a sense of that at the time, and with every passing year and every passing opportunity to make any kind of replication of how good we were at that time and how far we advanced, for various reasons, including Dublin's dominance. Obviously, you will be familiar with that. Yeah, just sort of you grieve for the days that where the sun was high on and the football was good.
You'd almost take recent Westmeath, would you, at this point, given what's happening in the world?
I mean, yes, of course, I'd love to see some sport, but I mean, this is more of a lament for you know.
Would you not say Westmeath, like, who puts their hand up in terms of the Leinster counties who would win the Leinster Championship without Dublin's existence over the last decade?
Well,
last 9 years. I'm sure you'd make the case that Westmeath would have been in contention.
I have often said that there are two teams dominating Leinster at the minute over the last decade, and that is Dublin and Westmeath. And like, obviously, there's a bit of a joke in that, but also at the same time, for a lot of those years, I would say that Westmeath would have been in with a serious shout. But I mean, like, it's fairly futile, isn't it? Like, who would win the league if Manchester City weren't there? If Liverpool weren't there this season, who would win the league? Like, it just feels slightly redundant. Like, I mean, Kildare would have had a shout for that. Maybe Meath, average enough team at the best of times on. And outside of that, it's slim pickings. But it's the same. Sure, it's been the same, and the margins have been less, but it's been the same on the national stage over the last 5 or 6 years, obviously. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, and it's not even. It's an interesting question from you, because you're just looking at it in terms of silverware. Like, even in 2004 from us, it was much more than silverware. Like, you and your mates and your family get the opportunity every single year to travel to lots of high-profile games, to get up to Croke Park, to share in something that is impossible to replicate anywhere else. Like, consider the levels of emotion you get to, whether it's the nervousness, the highs, the lows, but that shared experience is so unfamiliar to, and people from Kerry and Dublin to a lesser degree, because they would have gone through, obviously, the troughs over the years as well, and various other counties, Galway, Armagh, Tyrone, various other counties will have no idea of this, but like, it's not something that you experience. It's like you get the odd, you get thrown a bone here or there, and you get a day out at Croke Park that you know you're ultimately going up to get the shit kicked out of you. And so there's a bit of a falseness to it anyway, because you don't get that like deep nervous energy, because you know you're going to play Dublin and you're going to get killed. But yeah, so that's not something, like, you're living a very different experience to most of the rest of us when it comes to that shared experience of sport.
Privileged, I think, is the word. But where were you for the summer of 2004. What's your memory? Like, obviously we're talking about the Westmeath Mount Rushmore for anybody who isn't already aware. And Adrian, with the company of Conor Moore, will be picking his four faces later on after 9 o'clock. I presume, there was obviously going to be somebody from the 04 team in your Mount Rushmore, but I presume that's like your strongest memory of being a Westmeath man in the sporting sense.
Ah, yeah, it was class. It was such a perfect time for me. I was in my mid-20s at that point, living in Dublin. Like, could not have been better. In fact, living just up the road from Croke Park in Phibsborough, it just really couldn't be better. I don't remember anything other than it was scorching hot every single day. We would have myself and a bunch of my mates from home. There'd be 6 of us that would still be very close, who've known each other since we were about 4. Would have in the main all gathered for those games. And gone into Croke Park. We would have gone for pints around. We would have met with our old schoolmates. You would see old neighbours, old school friends, family. You would just bump into people that you hadn't seen for years in the mill around Croke Park. And again, this is something that you're very familiar with. Like, I didn't really experience very much of that outside of the odd bone you get thrown since 2004. But it was just incredible. And the journey of it, the rivalry with Laois, obviously, over those years was just like an incredible thing. I was watching back. The GA are doing that rewind series. I'm sure you've seen that over the last little while. And to be fair to them, they are putting a focus on a lot of the maybe lesser known counties. And they picked out my 2 Westmeath highlights, which was the 2004 final and then the 2015 game against Meath, which was that
was unbelievable.
Well, it runs to. This is going to sound like some sort of hyperbole, but it definitely runs 2004 very close. Like, I was at that game.
It has to. Like, it's definitely the comeback of the decade in Gaelic football. It was
incredible. It was just incredible. And like, the context is the rivalry against Meath. Obviously, the context for me is I was sat at the game with my wife, who's from Navan. And at halftime, obviously, had just wrote the game off. Was like, listen, you know that point of the game on that you get to. Maybe you're not all that familiar with it, where you get to where you have made peace with the fact that you're going to get beaten, right? So you remove the emotion from it. That sort of nervous tension is gone almost, because you're like, right, actually, listen, we're just going to get beaten here, and that's just the way it is. And I've now removed myself from this idea of potentially beating a team like Meath, who, like, I was sat behind Desi Dolan when he took that free again in the early to mid 2000s. That was like an absolute gimme, and he kicked it past the post. It would have been the first time we'd ever beaten Meath in the championship, and that was such heartbreak. Like, that was maybe the most devastating day of my sporting existence. But 2015 was just sensational. And the manner of it as well, like, Westmeath were coming and coming and coming, and they buried Meath's faces into the sand and stomped on them. And like the icing on the cake, the goalkeeper getting sent off late on, that Heslin goal late on. Kieran Martin was like a bull, a beautiful bull. I described him on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely outrageous stuff. Like, and it was the fact that we were beaten and Meath were going around. They almost had the collars up. They were like, the arrogance of them all, absolute arrogance of them, and we managed to like drive their faces into the muck. It was sweet, one of the sweetest days.
In one of those moments, you're kind of almost fantasizing to yourself, "How do we get 2 goals here?" And then, a long ball goes in, and we get the next point after that, and I don't know, our backs get on top. You start justifying it in your head when you're that far behind, and it's just this
100%,
fantastical notion until it actually happens. It's.
I wasn't even. The reality is, honestly, I wasn't even thinking like that. I wasn't thinking, if we could get a couple, because I knew, as far as I was concerned, I knew at the time that was just fantasy. Like, I'm kidding myself here. Meath are all over us. We can't score. We've no momentum. They're playing with a bit of a swagger. We were maybe 7 or 8 points down at half time. Just could not see it. But I honestly, Kieran Martin, and he's not a guy that gets talked about in conversations like these in relation to Westmeath's Mount Rushmore. But Jesus, that day he was unbeatable. He was unreal, and Heslin as well, obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of that man, John Heslin, we've been trying to gauge the thoughts of as many people as possible around our Mount Rushmore debates. So we called up John Heslin to get his thoughts on today's Mount Rushmore.
Hi lads, John Heslin here. I hope all is well during the current restrictions. Looking forward to seeing who Conor has to suggest as his sporting legends. I think many would join me in saying Desi Dolan would be my number one. Obviously, grew up watching Desi play, and then luckily enough got to play with him and room with Desi. Taught me many tricks, including getting to the hotel room first and stealing all the biscuits. So learned plenty of tricks off Desi. I think Desi would agree that Ger Heaven probably taught him a lot, so Ger deserves a special shout out. For me though, of course, many of the 2004 team, Rory O'Connell, Gary Connaughton, all the lads, one special shout out again would be to John Kane. I think a lot of lads would say that he was the toughest opponent that they would have come up against. Obviously the forward bias in me then would give a special shout out to Dennis Glennon. Again, luckily enough got to play with him, and speed that I could only dream of having, so Dennis definitely deserves a special shout out. An unsung hero probably would be Kieran Gavin, an excellent player of the game and still playing to this day, and to captain a Sigerson winning team in DCU with the likes of Michael Murphy, Paul Flynn, a star-studded DCU team is definitely a credit to Kieran. And then not forgetting the ladies sports as well, I'd have to give a special shout out to Pamela Greville for all that she's achieved in the game. It's really admirable, and they're kind of the people that I'd look up to, specifically from a GA background in Westmeath.
Yeah, like John Heslin himself obviously is bloody hell. How do you not have when you're having a conversation like this, not include somebody like that? Incredible player. Lots of. It's funny. I'm not being facetious when I talk about the sweaty palms, and like it was Jesus. To be honest, I know your one is going to come at some point. Have you any idea yet about when Kerry gets shoved up to the front?
After the June bank holiday, I think.
Right.
That's the current. So sometime in the month of June when the sun really is splitting the rocks and we're still indoors.
Yeah, I've been at this for a couple of weeks, and I've been in contact with a bunch of people to make sure that I don't leave this list with people off the list on, as has happened in previous. I won't name them, but it's happened in previous elections. You got to be thorough about it, and I really enjoyed it. I have to say, really enjoyed the whole process of just going through it and like learning about people that you wouldn't have known very much about, and reminding yourself about the greatness of some of the Westmeath sports people that have come through. And there's been plenty of contacts as well. Jimmy Allen's been in contact lots. He's been thinking about this one as deeply as I have. He's suggesting that Conor Moore is going to put Spike Fagan in. Oh Lord, he says. Well, Spike is definitely one of those names that deserves to be in a conversation like this. Cormac McCormack says, out of that list, Desi Dolan, David Kilcoyne, Turlock O'Connor and Willie Lowry would be his four there. Desi nailed on, says Kieran Murr on Twitter. Robbie Henshaw, then Rory O'Connell, he says. And he also wants to put his own brother in there, who is Fergal Murray. I think Fergal Murray is one of those players with a lot of medals, which is not a regular thing in Westmeath. Desi, Keane, Henshaw and Eddie O'Leary, says Paul Leonard. Like, I don't know where we sit on the inclusion of horse owners / trainers on.
It depends what your view is on horse racing. Does the horse do the work? Does the trainer do the work? Does the jockey do the work? It's all three is the answer. What was the name of the American horse that got nominated for Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year? Like, once that happened, the floodgates were open, really. All three really can play a part in this.
Yeah. We've had a bunch of other contacts in as well. We've had Adrian and Sullivan saying Brendan Murtagh has to be in with the shout. Most shinty appearances for Ireland. Was once the only non-Kilkenny player in the Leinster forward line when they won the Railway Cup. Bag county medals. The GOAT, he says. And he's agreed with there by Kevin O'Brien. And some current and former intercounty players have been in contact, apart from John Heslin as well. We have had an anonymous text in saying we'll be listening to the Westmeath Mount Rushmore tomorrow on the way to work. If the list isn't as follows, I'm going to want an explanation. John Evan, Robbie Henshaw, Desi Dolan and David Kilcoyne, with honourable mentions to John Jobber McGrath, Spike Fagan, Gary Connaughton, John Keane, Rory O'Connell, David O'Shaughnessy, Brezzy, Kenny Lyons, who was a name that I hadn't, it was the first suggestion I'd heard, Kenny Lyons, former Westmeath forward with a bit of a cut of style about him, John Joe Joyce, he says, and maybe mistaking him for another legendary John Joe, and Michael O'Leary in there as well. John Egan, the Westmeath footballer, says Alan Sheehan, who's obviously an Irish footballer who has had a long career in the English game. Rick Quinlan backs that up. He says, with the level of soccer with the level that soccer is played at and what it takes to get to the top level, he's the best sportsman to ever come out of Westmeath. Like, it's a big shout, and not necessarily a shout, I have to say, that I would agree with. He's had certainly a long and extremely good career. One of the very small percentage to manage to do so. John Quinlan says, not to mention if he stuck around, he would have been Westmeath's greatest ever GAA footballer. We shall never know. Michelle Whelan says, Alan Sheehan, Desi Dolan, Robbie Henshaw. She says, all three from Coosan with something in the water here. And she's adding in Mark Rowan as well as the final name on that list. And Maris College on Twitter, great school on. One of the finest schools, tremendous school, greatest school in the country, says 5 former Mars GA stars up for nomination for the off-the-ball Westmeath Sporting Mount Rushmore. Who would be the 4 that make up the Mars GA Mount Rushmore? Well, there is a list that we might have to say for another day. In fact, when we're done with the off-the-ball Mount Rushmores, we might have to get back after July. We might have to start in a schools Mount Rushmore.
That was Robbie Henshaw's school, wasn't it?
Yeah, Robbie Henshaw, Rory O'Connell, Desi Dolan, I think, went there. Mark Rowan definitely went there.
Does Robbie Henshaw make the GA Mount Rushmore of that school?
Yeah, played in the Leinster final for Maris College. So you would have to say yes. At that point, he's probably leaning towards rugby at that stage, but probably in the balance, and a fine Gaelic footballer who, again, no more than the Alan Sheehan point, would have gone on to have had a stellar career for Westmeath, you would think.
It was a great moment for your province and all that, seeing a Connacht man represent Connacht in the Pro 12 and bring that title home.
He's not from Connacht, though. That is a slight fly in the ointment of your bullshit theory there that I know you're just giving to wind me up. Right, well, we'll wrap up the Mount Rushmore talk then for the minute. We've lots more to come on that, and that's coming your way after 9 o'clock this morning, so do stay tuned for that. And if you have any thoughts on it as well, do get your comments coming in. By the way, I remember Paddy O'Shea being the Westmeath manager, says Cavan lad, who I'm assuming by that suggestion, because we haven't even mentioned him on, is putting Paddy up there. You giving to us?
No, not a chance. Absolutely hands off. Fair enough if it's idle conversation back in 2018, which I think was the last time we did Mount Rushmore. This is competitive dog eat dog when we're doing county by county here. Not a chance are you taking away and scurrying around the country to try and steal people off other counties.
Listen, we'll put him in. We'll put him in on. We're happy with that. Here's a bit of a sense of what's going on before we tell you what's happening in the back pages in the world of sport today. The Premier League star Sergio Aguero is saying that he's scared about returning to play football during the coronavirus pandemic. Aguero was speaking ahead of the meeting of the 20 Premier League clubs today. Again, obviously a Zoom call or video call, whatever the hell it is they use to examine plans to restart the season. It's been put on ice, obviously, since March. The league hoping to resume on June the 8th, with training starting on May the 18th. Obviously, plenty of obstacles and a lot of disquiet and objections from clubs about playing matches at neutral venues as well. And obviously, it will need the backing of the British government. But such a high-profile name coming out to say that players are scared about getting back to even training, I'm sure will come up for discussion as well. Today, League of Ireland clubs set to be updated on the finances required to stage matches behind closed doors in the summer. If government permits, of course, that move, players may be given the choice to opt out of playing games on safety grounds, which is an interesting dynamic. And in rugby, the Irish Daily Mail reporting that Leinster are set to be crowned the Pro 14 champions when the season's eventually cancelled. The province were runaway leaders in their conference as things stood. It's believed that the GAA could be facing a deficit of up to €15 million if there are no inter-county championship matches played in this calendar year. Employees, it's reported this morning, could be facing further pay cuts in May and June, with the GAA warning that it's unlikely to be a significant programme of games this year. So that's what's happening on that front. Here's a bit of a flavour of what's happening over the course of this morning for you. We're going to get stuck into the sports pages in just a moment's time, let you know exactly what's happening around those stories today. And as I mentioned a little earlier, it isn't just speculation about times. There's some other stories in there as well. Neil Tracy, as you'll have heard, there was a lot of contention about this one. Selected his Irish Rugby Professional 15, his selection during the week, and there was a lot of controversy about it. it, as you would expect, falls along provincial lines, and Alan Quinlan is going to be coming away about 8:30 or a little bit just afterwards, where he's going to give us his thoughts on that. Will he be putting all those Munster players back in? We shall find out. Podrick Mannion is taking part in the FIFA 20 All-Ireland charity tournament this weekend. It all kicks off today. It's been live streamed. He's going to be representing Galway. We'll find out just how good he is at FIFA, get his thoughts as well, and a couple of those GAA stories doing the rounds this week as well. And we've got Westmeath Mount Rushmore coming for you just after 9 o'clock, and the crappy quiz at 20 to 10. I lost my crown last week. Can I regain it this week? I'll be in the company. I'm sure it'll all be a pleasant exercise, and everybody will be very collegiate about it, and the quizmaster will be under no pressure whatsoever from a bunch of screaming kids. So that is coming your way at the way it normally works on, isn't it?
Yeah. I would like to say in advance that literally all of your children are actually less childish than you. Like we've got a lot of glimpses of kids over the last couple of weeks. They are all more mature than all of you. I'm talking about you, Ger, and Nathan. We would have a more mature conversation with your children by just asking them trivia than asking the three of you guys.
It's fair. We did shoot this yesterday, and I was more than slightly distracted by having to mind two kids at the same time. So, I mean, whether
excuses in early.
Yeah, listen, excuses in late, as it turns out. So anyway, look, that's what's happening over the course of this morning. We're going to be getting to Alan Quinlan next here on OTB AM to hear his best ever Irish Rugby 15 of the professional era. First, we're going to give you a chance and a heads up that you're going to have the chance to relive another Heineken Cup tournament classic. Cardiff Blues and Leicester Tigers played out a thrilling semi-final in the 2008-09 season to determine who would head to Edinburgh, of course, for the final there. Martin Williams is going to be looking back on that match too. It's going to be streamed tomorrow at 5:45 Irish time as well. So all that coming your way in just a little bit. And a reminder as well that we're going to have another OTB Kids takeover coming your way in just a few moments' time. A few days' time. It's coming your way next week. And Simon Zebo is going to be the subject of it. We've had Lee Keegan, you'll remember Brian O'Driscoll as well, and getting all the hard questions put to them. And you can get in touch. If you want to drop us a WhatsApp, it's a 0879 180 180. And you can get your kid to send us through a WhatsApp there, a little video message, and we put it to Simon Zebo. Right, it is time now for the newspapers.
OTB AM.
Going to start with offtheball.com, and you would have heard if you were tuned in from 7:30 this morning, John Giles select his Leeds 11 of all time. It's the Leeds story on our website this morning, as well as his tribute to his former teammate Trevor Cherry, who was announced this week had passed away as well. So very sad stuff there, and very tough for John, it has to be said, following very quickly, obviously, on the passing of another former teammate, Norman Hunter. Also up on offtheball.com this morning, Richie McCormack on the return of NASCAR, and how this is going to be the first sport that gets back in your screens. I'm not sure I could bring myself to it, Owen. I have to say, Ricky Bobby is about the extent of my exposure to NASCAR. I mean, I might go for it. It'll probably be on at all hours of the morning as well here, which might sort of deter people from looking at it. But how desperate are you? I see there's live chess somewhere. Seems to be the only actual sport that's happening. I'm really not sure I could bring myself to it.
No, I'd almost be more inclined to do the chess than the NASCAR, to be honest with you. Not an organisation I'm particularly fond of, or I would take a lot of other things over NASCAR at this point, I think.
Yeah, you got the indoor first?
I do, and the headline here, I should actually start with the photograph in the back of the Irish Independent. It's a photograph there of Michael Verney, who completed the 1,000 push-up challenge. We know on this show what an unbelievable achievement that is. Verney completes charity challenge. Our own Michael Verney is used to writing the news instead of making it, but the Irish Independent journalist completed a notable achievement of his own last night of 1,000 push-ups in 1 hour, and all for some great causes. Fair play to him. The fundraiser collected over €14,000 for PPE for HSE staff, and of course for Do It for Dan. So fair play to Michael Verney there. That's him obviously at the end after the 1,000th push-up. No games will leave Croker facing €15 million black hole is the main story. Stark figures given to county treasurers as more salary deferrals are sought from staff. An opt-out clause is being discussed for League of Ireland players. Meanwhile, the players won't be forced to take part in matches if they feel themselves their well-being and their safety won't be of the highest priority, or if they feel that they won't be safe getting on to the pitch. And then a couple of other stories here from the Irish Independent this morning. You've got a beacon in the darkest days, moments in time, writes Vincent Hogan. Rip it up and start again, says Niall Morgan. Tyrone Star would love to see a return to knockout football this year. And Italia 90, in his own words, ahead of the repeat of Ireland against England, which is on TG Cahir tonight. We recall Kevin Moran's diary, which appeared in the Irish Independent on the morning of the match on June 11th, 1990. That game, of course, was the focus of our Classic Game Club this week on OTB AM.
Surely John Haslam, by the way, should be on any Westmeath Mount Rushmore. Surely to Jesus, says David Connolly, which is a fantastic expression. And Michael Bannon rightly pointing out that Desi Dolan didn't go to Morris, he went to Mells and Longford. So there you are. The Irish Examiner for you this morning, John Fogarty, reports about countless still counting the cost of counties still counting the cost of cancellations. He writes here, Galway looking for a €25,000 rebate from Aer Lingus for cancelled flights to New York. Roscommon looking for half that for their cancelled trip to London. It seems like Galway's trip, which was in fact due to be this weekend, of course, would have topped over 60 grand in total. And there's been a lot of conversation over the last week, and indeed more than that, about the potential rebate, which a decision on which it seems will come from the EU, but a potential rebate there, whether it's going to be in hard cash or are you going to get vouchers. Like, I think from a county board point of view, they'd probably want to get the cash in the short term in terms of like keeping the cash flow going where it needs to, but like in terms of a longer term thing, can't see vouchers being an issue. They're going to have to spend that money at some point anyway down the track to get themselves to wherever it is. But maybe in the short term they need the cash. We'll see. That's a decision that I'm sure will be taken out of their hands. Stephen Barry on that Ray Walker case and how it's the first showing of Meldonium in Irish sport as well. Ray Walker saying that he doesn't know how it got into a system and obviously denying any wrongdoing around it. But this is one that's set to run and run and run because we don't, I suppose, have enough conversations about doping in Irish sport and the possibility of doping in Irish sport. And obviously, when we see a case like this, it's an opportunity for us to speak to people who are involved in it about their sense of whether it's an issue or not. And Owen Cormacan, finally from the Irish Examiner for me, with the Cork hurling manager Kieran Kingston this morning, where you can see pictured there. And I suppose, to summarise it, hoping upon hope that we get a return to sport at some stage, but as tends to be the case as well, obviously saying that just as long as everything is safe to do so.
The Irish Times this morning leads with Sean Moran's piece about the GEA. The GEA announced further staff pay cuts. Association facing serious financial predicament due to coronavirus crisis. A couple of other interesting stories here as well in the Irish Times today. Ian O'Riordan asking about the Ray Walker case and how the situation presents more questions. How Meldonium ended up in player system will not be clarified, and it is a question that we all still have at the moment. Johnny Waterson, meanwhile, with the headline here, Cronin's ban leaves Munster facing vexed questions. He's gone back on the James Cronin situation, the story which came out last week, and St. Joseph's unwilling to give up dreams of glory. It's Eamon Donoghue this morning focusing on college's GEA and how their manager of St. Joseph's is hopeful that Leinster final against Naas will eventually be played.
The Times UK edition, the London Times, the photo that you can see here first, Britain's Olympic swimming champion Adam Peaty has had a pool lowered into his back garden on. This is incredible stuff. I've seen one swimmer whose name escapes me over the last 24 hours who had a tension rope. They'd built something similar. They'd got a skip. They'd put it in their back garden. They'd put some sort of bin liner around it. I'm sure it's something a bit more industrial than that, and put a tension rope around their waist so that they could obviously manage to knock out whatever sort of modified training that was possible. But Adam Peaty has gone a step further and he's got a pool lowered into his back garden, and it's 5 meters long. You can see him in full flight there. How many of those full flight strokes he manages to actually knock out in one length, I really don't know. But I mean, obviously athletes are willing to go to whatever lengths it takes to, pardon the pun, to get a bit of training done. Tension, some interesting stuff in the London Times this morning. Tension between UK anti-doping and UK athletics over Alberto Salazar and Mo Farah, again, according to Matt Lawton here. UK athletics handed over a report last night that UCAD say should have been handed over in 2015. It contains information about Farah's medical history. UCAD are not happy. I'm wondering, why it takes so long. The report was finished in 2015 to eventually hand the thing over. We don't get any indication, certainly from the first page, exactly about what's exactly contained within and any great salaciousness in relation to that. But certainly there are major question marks to be asked. And I know there's been changes at the top of UK athletics over the last little while, but we're going back 5 years here. And as to why it takes so long for that report to be handed over is just incredible. And it's a relationship that has had plenty of question marks about it over the last while. And this certainly does not. I think in any of these cases, what you'd like to see is transparency and openness. And again, it's another check in the box of neither of those factors. And also, D-Day for Project Restart by Matt Lawton, Martin Hardy and Gary Jacob here. It seems that next Thursday there's going to be a vote by Premier League clubs on the planned return to games on June the 8th. There are 92 games remaining to be played in the season. Some talk I've seen here about keeping match locations as neutral venues and keeping them quiet from fans so the fans don't show up, which is, I think, quite a fanciful notion, if I'm being honest, and introducing another... I mean, maybe it's what they have to do, but it's another layer of intrigue.
The Herald this morning leads with pool title on the line. Reds reject claim that plan to restart league is farcical. The loggerheads, really, the football club with the mayor of Liverpool, it seems, at this point. GEA faces €15 million loss this year, as already mentioned. And greatest Dublin sporting events. Today in the Herald, it's number 6, Republic of Ireland versus Brazil in 1987.
The Irish Daily Mail, you can see the UK version there. Aguero, we're scared, obviously, in front of those comments that we mentioned a bit earlier on. On the Irish version, Rory Keane and Chris Foy write that Leinster are going to be handed the Pro 14 title once the tournament is officially cancelled. Michael Clifford on those latest round of wage cuts at the GEA as playing hopes recede, he says, as well as that Aguero story, the quote being that the majority of players are scared because they have family, they have children, babies, parents. That's the Irish Daily Mail this morning.
The back page this morning of the Irish Daily Star is that Sergio Aguero story. We're scared, he says. Aguero says players have fears over restarting. Niall Quinn, meanwhile, says leagues must be ready to go. Six Nations, France tie, a big doubt, writes Derek Foley. So this is obviously the postponed Six Nations game that was due to take place in Paris around Paddy's Day. The fixture itself is in grave danger, along with the rest of this year's outstanding matches, including the clash with Italy, of being declared totally void. You've got a photo inset there on the back of the Times, which says, meanwhile in Nicaragua, one of the leagues which is still proceeding at the moment. Those are the players of Deportivo Walter Ferretti celebrating a goal against Managua FC in the Liga Primera in Nicaragua in the early hours of yesterday morning. So it might have been, Belarus? Was it last month that still had games going? You want to focus your attention on Nicaragua now if you want some football. And neutral grounds, a no-go. Premier League clubs are opposed to playing at neutral venues to get the season finished.
The Irish Sun, meanwhile, is probably the UK version that you can see in front of you there, but the Irish version, Neil O'Riordan has an exclusive that the FAI High Performance Director, Ruth Doctor, looks set to stay at the association despite all the boardroom upheaval there over the last while. He joined in 2013, obviously under John Delaney, and with reduced terms, writes Neil O'Riordan, looks set to sign on for another term. Ian Hart, in an interview, reminds us that Robbie Keane, and we do need reminding, Robbie Keane's role with the FAI remains in limbo. We haven't had any update on that in the last while. And Martin Blackburn on those Sergio Aguero quotes about being fearful of a return to play.
Sergio Aguero leads the way on the back of the Mirror this morning. Players scared over return is the headline there. Clubs negative on neutral grounds plan. Meanwhile, as we've already mentioned, and Liverpool blast mayor over fans ending season. And associations set all-island steering body, writes Paul O'Hare. The FAI and IFA last night agreed to set up a steering group that will investigate the viability of an all-island league. So this is the story involving Kieran Lucid, who published his final recommendations last week. It's something that kind of went under the radar given everything that's going on. It would involve teams from the North and South playing out their own reduced domestic leagues to determine their respective champions and European positions. So that is something that is still chugging away at the moment. And GEA season, of course, hanging by a thread is the headline there with a photograph of an empty Croke Park, and empty it will probably stay for the foreseeable future.
The Guardian, interesting story here. David Heitner, Paul McKinney's have an exclusive that the Premier League are investing in COVID-19 testing machines. Excuse me, apparently can turn around results in 2.5 hours, they say. They cost £36,000 each and are readily available. Now, there's a couple of kickers in this one. They can only test one person every 2.5 hours, which is 7 employees a day. And they're saying that the turnaround times and the delay and the costs is effectively why the NHS don't want them, because it's obviously one of the first questions you would ask yourself here. But this is obviously all. My first thought was about actually this is something that could test a lot of people over a very short period of time, that the health services may be able to make use of them in the shorter term. But it seems it's not really any of those things. It's just a method of, if we are to move towards behind closed doors sport, that this would be some way to help that. That's the Guardian.
The Irish news, finally, for me this morning, is a photograph of the gates at Anfield, venue concerns on the agenda, and then Aaron Kernan has been out in front of the media as well. Sport will have huge role in a return to normality. So he's done an interview there with the Irish news, kind of reiterating just how important the return to action will be for the well-being of the nation, as well as our own enjoyment, I guess, at this point. So talking sense as usual there.
And the last one from me this morning is the Telegraph. Aguero fears for family over restart. Cricket's new shiny thing, the 100, has been postponed. You won't be surprised to hear. And Gavin Mayer's saying that there's a plan for a reduced 18-team Heineken Champions Cup, reduced to 4 matches in the pool stages to get around the fixture congestion. Raj had been saying in the Examiner today that there was chat about expanding, in fact, the Heineken Cup next season, in terms of the number of teams at least partaking, obviously reducing the number of games. Because we won't have official qualifiers other than the current half-finished standings, particularly in the top 14. So slightly conflicting reports there, and it remains to be seen exactly how that plays out over the next while. Right, that is the newspapers for you this morning. Do keep in contact with us over the course of the day. Alan Quinlan is going to join us next this morning to choose his all-time Irish Rugby 15 of the professional era, all off the back of Neil Tracy revealing his team on OTB AM earlier in the week, which split opinion on a few positions.
Sean O'Brien not being on the bench instead of Peter O'Mahony, or not in the starting team, I'd imagine, is what Sherwood wanted here. That's it's a big call.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It was an incredibly tight goal. Tight head flanker and winger were incredibly difficult to split. I think you're talking fine hairs between Ferris and O'Brien. There's probably a little bit of Munster bias coming in there with Peter O'Mahony on my bench. Like the bench I just threw together last night when I was listening out the names in my head. But like Sean O'Brien's outstanding. And a bit like Ferris as well. He's, the last few years of his career have been robbed by injuries as well.
As a 6 or 7, so you're putting Sean O'Brien in as a 6. I mean, is he not also pushing hard / pushing David Wallace out of the team?
Oh, he's pushing. He's close to edging either one of them out of the team. But I think Ferris and David Wallace for me are just about taking it.
Okay.
Number 8.
The backlash. You do live in Dublin, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Okay, it'll just be interesting to see what happens. That's all. Number 8.
Well, look through the team at the end. Leinster have a fair old representation.
Sean O'Brien's not in your 23 of best art. Like Sean O'Brien's potentially first name on the team sheet in terms of I want to win this game. Everybody else will help me, but Sean O'Brien's going straight down. Like Sean O'Brien was the one that the All Blacks used to go, oh, that Sean O'Brien guy, he's really good, isn't he? They didn't say that about anybody else on our team. They were like, we recognise game, and they recognise Sean O'Brien.
Yeah, that is the selection of Neil Tracy, Ireland's greatest 15 of the professional era. Interesting stuff. It's caused a lot of debate, obviously, and to continue that debate, I'm delighted to say Alan Quinlan joins us on the line. Quinny, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Good, yeah. A lot of this tends to divide up, obviously, along sort of provincial lines, so we might as well get stuck into it. Let's sort of operate on the basis that you're sitting down to pick an Irish 15. Let's assume that all of the runners and riders here are in their full pomp, in the best of form of their career, and you're sitting down to pick a team to take on the All Blacks in a final test, let's say. Let's go through it then, sort of line by line, and some of these you might just sort of endorse and we move on. We've got about 15 minutes to do it, but let's see what you think, and let's kick off in the order that Neil has selected them here with Cian Healy at loose side prop. Any debate about that?
No, I think he's been probably the most consistent and best player in that position. I think with his power and his overall contribution throughout the game. I think you're splitting hairs with so many people here. There's some obvious ones. I think he's an obvious selection there just for his longevity and bar a few injuries. I think he'd have a lot more caps. I just the impact I think he's made over the years has been phenomenal.
Are you nudging Rory Best in favour of Woody, or are you leaving him?
No, I'm not. I'm leaving Woody. I think it's probably a difficult one here because, like the loose head props scenario, Claw, Marcus, they wouldn't be too happy with me. I don't think Rory Best will be too happy with me at the hooker position. I just think Woody has the record number of test tries for a hooker, and I just think, barring injuries, and there's probably a contradiction in some of the selections here, I'm basing this off not maybe the scenario of best team in a professional area. I'm kind of what you said at the start. If all these players were fit and available, and I was picking a test team, I'd have to start Woody because I think, his leadership and just the quality around the field and the impact and the ability to score tries and stuff like that as well. So Woody starts at hooker.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much debate about that. There is about tight head and who exactly you would have here. Neil has gone for John Hayes. Would you be... I mean, you soldiered along this guy for a long time. Are you sticking with that, or are you opting for the new shiny thing?
Well, just for any of the viewers who will be accusing me of provincial bias afterwards, John Hayes is one of my best mates. We're incredibly close, but I'm not picking him. I've changed my mind on this one because the Leinster Brigade will be out attacking me over maybe some of the other selections, but maybe because I know Hayes so well and he'll be fine with it, I'm dropping him for Tadhg Furlong. I just think, given what I'm saying about Woody and the impact and that just all-round football ability and the performances in the 3 tests against New Zealand in 2017, I'm going for Tadhg Furlong. But the longevity and the effort and the performances and the consistency of John Hayes was phenomenal. And I was so lucky that we valued him so much in when I played with him for Munster, Ireland. He was probably the most undervalued player ever to play for Ireland. His just contribution was phenomenal. A lot of it went unseen, but I think Tadhg Furlong, it's been mentioned so many times, he's just that all-round modern prop who can run, pass, do everything. Scrummaging is superb, and he gets the nod at tight head.
In their prime, is Furlong a better scrummager? Is that what it boils down to?
Yeah, but John obviously had his issues at the start because he was a second row. He went from second row to front row, and Furlong probably, edges. If you went through all the different facets of what's required as a tight end, Furlong probably just has that bit more explosive power. You could argue that John is there's so much consistency all the way through in all his performances. But Furlong is probably he's a better footballer. John would admit that himself, but maybe if you're picking a team, some would start John and bring Tadhg Furlong off the bench. But look, I'm putting Tadhg Furlong.
That's the cop
in there.
out, Quinny. Yeah, go on out of that, chat.
No. I'm picking Tadhg Furlong. He's the tight head.
Right, well, you're going to make amends then, surely, with another former Munster teammate in the second row, because Neil has gone for Malcolm O'Kelly and Paul O'Connell, and the big argument, obviously, is about whether Donncha O'Callaghan should be in there. What are you doing?
Well, it's between the three of them, really, isn't it? Donncha, Mal and Paul. I think James Ryan probably hasn't played long enough for Ireland. I think if you forwarded this on 5 years, he'd probably be jumping ahead of Mal and Donncha, because Paul... There's probably no debate about Paul O'Connell. There is no debate. So Paul O'Connell is your number 5. Your number 4, basing it on probably balance and a balance. You know, if you're selecting 2 second rows, ideally you want to try and pick, you know, a jumper at the front of the line out, someone who's a bit more of a tighter type player, a bit of a bruiser if you like, and someone who doesn't call the lineouts. You know, you have the other second row traditionally is your number 4 jumper. He runs your lineout, so Paul will do that. And for that reason, I'd go with Donncha. There's very little to separate the two because, you know, Mal played 92 times for Ireland as well. 2 Lions tours in 01 and 05. Donncha 94 caps for Ireland. 2 Lions tours 95 and or 05 and 09 as well. So there's only 2 caps separating them. You could say that Donncha started a couple of test matches for the Lions, but because of the balance, I'm going to go with Donncha and put Mal on the bench. Mal won't be pleased with me, but anyway.
Who was a better player in their prime?
Well, they were different second rows, if you know what I mean, Adrian. Like, so Mal would have been, if you were selecting your 4 jumper and your lineout operator, Mal would have been going up against Paul. Now, Mal and Paul played together. That's not to say that those types of second rows didn't play together, because, you know, I played at the World Cup in 03 and Mal and Paul were the second rows. So sometimes you have to. Malcolm O'Kelly was phenomenal. He was an incredible athlete. I remember him, you know, making his debut in 97 and just being so far ahead of everybody else athletically who played in that position throughout the world. You know, his ability to win the line out, make line breaks, and just cover so much ground around the field. So it's hard to say who was a better player because there were different types of second rows. Donncha's work rate, the engine, the ability to you know, just stay at a high level, high tempo throughout a game was phenomenal. His fitness was through the roof.
And you've got your red glasses on, Quinny. Let's face it. So it was always going to get tilted in that direction. Let's look at the back row. This is one of the biggest sort of areas of contention, obviously, and we heard in the clip in the lead in there about Sean O'Brien missing out. Neil has gone for Stephen Ferris, David Wallace, and Jamie Heaslip.
Yeah, well, when you pick, again, this is probably one of the most difficult, one of the most, and some of this is just gut feeling stuff. This is like a coach sitting down with his selectors and having all these players available and picking a team to go out and start. There's so many of them, so many variables, and very little between any of the players. It's the vast majority of selections are gut feelings. There's a couple of obvious ones, but when I think about it without over-analysing it, the first 3 players that come into my head are Ferris, Heaslip and Wallace. And I think that was probably from the 09 back row that won the Grand Slam. I trained with them and I was involved in that Grand Slam for the 6 or 7 weeks while the Six Nations was on. And, you know, it was probably the first time in my career that I was very accepting that the players ahead of me they were just too good. They deserved to be there. They were playing out of their skins and they were brilliant. In the earlier parts of his career, Wally was kind of on and off. The Irish team, on and off the Munster team, was incredibly powerful. Probably his speed and his pace was second to none. So you could argue that Sean O'Brien is very, very unlucky not to get the 7 berth. But again, probably that longevity and just the impact that Wally made gives him the nod at 7. And, you know, Peter O'Mahony at 6 would be unlucky as well. Axel, CJ Stander for his impact in the last number of years. Someone who didn't play hugely and his career was hampered by injury was Dennis Leamy. I remember talking to Graham Henry in 2006 after the first test in Hamilton, and he thought Leamy was the best number 8 in the world. The performance he put on against the All Blacks that night was sensational. So it's about longevity and I suppose impact throughout that career, and that's why Heaslip is at 8.
Okay. No mention of the man who saved Irish rugby at all.
Well, I'd be only embarrassing myself really by mentioning myself there. If you were looking for impacts at different stages, maybe I might slip myself in there for that try against Argentina. But no, I couldn't unfortunately, I didn't have the consistency. If I didn't have all the injuries, maybe I might be trying to argue and push my way somewhere in there. Simon Easterby, who was probably my main competitor for the 6 jersey throughout my career, was, he had an incredible career as well, and of longevity and consistency.
Conor Murray, there's no argument for taking him out briefly.
I think overall football and ability and all-round game, I think it goes to Conor Murray, but you have to mention Stringer. He's 98 caps for his country. His impact and what he did for in a Munster jersey and an Irish jersey was phenomenal as well over such a long period of time. And he always gave hope and inspiration to the smaller rugby players who were coming through everywhere of what he achieved. But small in stature, but massive in heart and resilience and temperament, I think, because he was an incredible professional, just phenomenal in the way he prepared and trained and the attitude and the consistency as well. So I think Stringer would be unlucky, but Conor Murray is just he's the full package, really, isn't he, as regards what he's done and what he's achieved, and he's a Lion starter. And I say some of this would be based on starting for the British and Irish Lions as well. So Conor Murray gets the nod at 9.
That might impact on I mean, maybe it won't, on your next call. Is Ronan O'Gara or Johnny Sexton the better out half?
Can we skip this one?
No, we're going to spend 20 minutes on this one. Let's have you.
It depends what you mean by the better out half. I think Ronan O'Gara is probably the better out half if you're looking at temperament, control, direction, all those kind of things. If Johnny Sexton is a better athlete, he's a better rugby player. He's someone who could play in the centre, could play at full back. Rog couldn't play in the centre really, or play full back maybe, because he was just out half was his position, and that was it. And similar to Stringer, he didn't, physically he wasn't, didn't have that physical presence or that impact. But because I played with Rog for so long, I know him a lot better than Johnny. I played a couple of times with Johnny. I've obviously watched Johnny, and he's an incredible player as well. So there's very little between the two. I think, of course, people can argue, and they're right to say that Johnny Sexton was probably, he's more physical and he probably has a bit more power. But I just can't get out of my head that I got up out of so many rucks and the bottom of rucks and you get up off the ground and you see the ball spiralling down the field 60, 70 yards and dribbling into touch, and the opposition having to run it backwards. And that was in the back of Ronan O'Gara's kicking game. And his kicking game for me would be better than Johnny's. Johnny's running game and probably ability to break tackles himself would be better. Two incredible players, Rogers.
Is that not more of a case? Is the case that you're not making there on the basis that we're sitting down to pick a team and they're pumped to take on the All Blacks? Should you not be leaning more towards Sexton on the basis of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a very good argument, because you think if you're playing in Eden Park against the All Blacks and you're going for the natural inclination in your head is pick the more physical player over the less physical. So, but I just think my argument there would be you're still in an incredibly pressurized environment, and traditionally you try and protect your fly half. And I just think O'Gara's temperament was second to none in my experience, and I experienced that more with him than I did with Johnny. So I'd still go for Rog, and the ability to have someone like Sexton coming off the bench after 50 minutes would again be phenomenal. But of course, that's one that lots of people will disagree with, but it's one that I have the experience of being in dressing rooms with Rog, and being in dressing rooms with Rog in New Zealand as well. And Johnny is an incredible leader as well, but I just think I've experienced it more. And no matter what happens with the rest of the team, you need your fly half to control where you play and stuff like that. And I think O'Gara just edges that a little bit on Johnny.
Yeah, good luck having that conversation with either of them about telling them that they're out.
There's I hate these bloody scenarios, because so many people, and they do take offence to this. Remember, Adrian, they find that they hear it. They all tell you they don't watch or listen to stuff that's going on in the media. But anyway, sure. Look,
yeah, well, it's not as if we work with not as if we work with either of them.
Yeah,
so we should be grand, you know.
But you know what we should do, Adrian? We should do, Adrian, is get both of them in someday and let them debate out who was the better fly half, and you can be the referee.
I don't think there's any conversation about the centres, so let's not have it between Driscoll and Darcy. The back three then, Dennis Hickey, Tommy Bowe and Rob Kearney. It's probably the wing positions that there might be some debate about.
Yeah, it is. I think Rob Kearney, obviously, there's no real debate. There's no debate there at all. Gervin Dempsey was a brilliant, consistent player for Ireland as well. He probably deserves a mention, but Kearney, for his longevity and what he's achieved, I think for me, Tommy Bowe plays in the right wing. Shane Horgan would be unlucky not to be. Some would argue that he would be pushing Tommy hard there. But I just think for the try scoring ability of Bowe, I think he scored 30 times the 69 caps. I think he was someone who just popped up in different areas around the field. Traditionally, just didn't stay on the wing. Had that height and physicality as well to compete early. So Shaggy was a different player, wouldn't have had the same out-and-out pace as Tommy. Incredibly effective player as well. And someone, again, there could be an argument here to say, well, you're going up against the All Blacks. And Shaggy was vocal and aggressive and in-your-face type winger who was very, very physical as well. So and a very, very big winger. Shane Horgan scored 21 tries and 65 caps. But I think when you're picking a team, it's like not picking the out-and-out strikers for in a soccer match. I think you need the finishers there as well. So Tommy Bowe gets the right wing slot, and again, I'm splitting hairs with the left wing. I think Keith Earls and Dennis Hickey are again your out and out poachers, aren't they? They're the ones who can have that bit of X factor, incredible pace, and can just get the job done, can get tries out of nowhere and then finish any little bit of space. So I'm going with Keith Earls here. Basically, he scored 30 tries and 84 caps. Dennis Hickey is 29 and 62. So you could say that Dennis Hickey is more prolific in a sense that less caps and one try less than Keith Earls. But I just find it very hard again for someone I know. So I know both of them well to leave Keith Earls out of it.
Listen, we always assume, Quinny, there's the Munster bias there. We're never going to get past that. We'll always take that as it.
You always assume. You say
I speak on behalf of the off the ball audience here.
Yeah. So do you want my bench as well? We're going to throw in a bench here.
Really,
so Rory Best, Marcus Horan, Mike Ross, Malcolm O'Kelly, Sean O'Brien, Johnny Sexton, Dennis Hickey, Shane Horgan. It's not a bad bench now, to be fair.
It's strong.
And there's a small little bit of consolation for those fellas who are going to be given out that at least they make the bench. They might start the test next week.
I'd say when you're talking to Johnny and you're telling him here, I've got a consolation prize for you, he'd be absolutely delighted.
I don't think he's talking to anyone in the media anymore, anyway. Anyone who was vocal about the performance in Twickenham. But he blamed it all on Rog, so that was fine. Rog took the heat for that one.
On that fine note, Quinny, good on you. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Alan Quinlan there with his selection of his reaction and selection to that Ireland professional 15, greatest 15. So interesting stuff, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of reactions to that to come as well over the coming days. By the way, a reminder that Yeah, a reminder that you should tune into the Snap later today. It's at 1 o'clock across all our social channels. Ger, Ronan and Keane are going to be reviewing the NFL draft in full, taking us through as well the winners and losers of that showpiece event. And also, if you haven't already, be sure to sign up to our American football newsletter. It's OTB Club Gridiron. And we've got the very latest content from the Snap there, as well as the latest American football news from both Ireland and from the USA, all up on offtheball.com. We've got podcasts, we've got long and short form video content there as well, all included in that mail shot. So you do want to get involved. We'll hit you up with an email every few weeks and let you know what's going on. You can subscribe at offtheball.com/Club Gridiron and enjoy all that Off the Ball Club Gridiron has to offer. We're going to talk to the Galway hurler Paraic Mannion next. First of all, John Giles on how he's been coping in recent weeks.
While you didn't see each other as much as you would have liked, at least you had that moment over Christmas when players were getting the freedom of the city, and all the Leeds United players as well were brought back for the centenary of the club, that actually you did get together as a group quite recently.
Yeah, well, that was it. That's the shock in it, you know. Obviously Norman looked well, Trevor looked well, and now we get to this stage. Norman, as we know, passed away with the virus. Again, I said, look, when Eddie rang me yesterday, I assumed it was the virus, but he said no, it was a heart attack. So, you know, it's just a shock, Nathan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, our sympathies to everybody who was close to him. How are you keeping, John? We get a lot of messages in every week, and anytime I'm talking to somebody on the phone, one of the first things they ask is, how's John keeping? How are you getting through this?
I'm keeping out of the way, Nathan. I must be honest, I'm terrified of it.
Right.
I'm in Birmingham, so I can go out for a walk every day, and I make sure I walk to the other side of the road if somebody's approaching or coming behind. So I'm actually terrified of it, but I'm keeping okay.
Yeah, John Giles in conversation with Nathan. Last night's show, he also went on to pick his all-time Leeds 11, all available on offtheball.com, so get yourself along there yeah, check that out. Right, this weekend, inter-county players right around the country have united to raise funds for frontline workers as the All-Ireland FIFA 20 charity online tournament takes place this weekend. Gets underway today, wraps up on Sunday, and you can watch it all on Insomnia Gaming Dublin Facebook page. You can head along there to check it out. And one of the players that's going to be involved this weekend is the Galway All-Ireland winner, All-Star Paraic Mannion as well. Good morning to you, Paraic.
Good morning.
How are you keeping? Good
now, good.
Are you any good at FIFA?
We'll see later on now.
Do you play?
A small bit, yeah. I'll be playing every now and again, but I don't know. We'll see what the standard is like now when we go up against the rest of them.
Are you representing Galway? Is that how this thing works?
Yeah, we did a bit of a knockout between the Galway lads first, and then I got a bit of luck along the way now to make it through. But
who was your closest competitor within the Galway camp?
I think I bet Mannion in the final, so I don't think he took it too well now. But
that's what you want to hear. You want to hear a bit of. I'm not sure. Were you seeing? Did you see I think it was Sky Sports running it recently, the Premier League FIFA competition, and there was like Trent Alexander-Arnold against Raheem Sterling. That could be one of the most watched sporting events of the entire year at this stage. Are we going to expect that sort of rivalry if you see somebody across the screen from you who you would have had heated on-pitch battles with? Surely that just adds to the whole thing.
I don't know. I think we're all naturally competitive as well, so I don't think anyone likes losing, whether it's hurling or FIFA.
Yeah. Was any surprise packages and the team, any players that your teammates who you thought, geez, I hadn't expected that?
Ian Murphy from Tommy Larkins was fairly good now, but he got drawn Wolves, so he was at a slight disadvantage, but he nearly pulled it off with them. You were or you're going to be Atletico Madrid? I'm going to be Atletico now in the All-Ireland series.
Right. Have you been consulting the team's sports psychologist, the nutritionist? Have you got in a word with the manager just for a bit of last-minute preparation?
I watched them against Liverpool there in the Champions League, so I think I've seen all I need to see.
Are you going as an Atletico player in FIFA? Are you going to shithouse the life out of your opponents, Simeone style?
As in park the bus.
Park the bus. Tough tackles. Target Sadio Mane, that sort of thing.
I don't know. I don't want to give too much away now, but we'll see. I'll have to come up with some sort of a plan anyway.
How are you finding everything, Paraic, in terms of like not being able to? We've seen plenty of people sort of getting out and about, making little videos about how they're managing to cope. I mentioned a bit earlier on, that British swimmer had got a 5-metre swimming pool dropped into his backyard to try and help him train. How are you managing?
Yeah, not too bad. Like, I'm probably lucky that I've Cahill as well, so that we can train together. And even for the hurling side of things, you can keep a bit sharper when you have someone there with you. Just trying to do a bit with the few bits of gym equipment that we have and keep a bit fit. Like, but it's hard when you don't know, or when you've no date for a game or anything. Like, we'd nearly always be used to training towards a date or a game. But I suppose as long as you can keep somewhat fit and somewhat strong, I think that's all you can hope for at this stage, really.
Are you hopeful that there will be some sort of, like, obviously the conversations continue this side, and in terms of trying to get some sort of a season out there as long as things are safe? Are you hopeful that will happen, or is it hoping against hope almost at this stage?
I'd be still hopeful, like, but you kind of, I nearly feel like we're being a bit selfish when you're looking for a GA games to be played, and people are out in hospitals and nursing homes and everywhere working and putting their lives at risk, and here we are worried about playing a game. But I think if it's safe to do so, I'd even settle at this stage for a championship behind closed doors, to be honest. If you ask me to pick whether there's no championship or one behind closed doors, I'd definitely go for the one behind closed doors. I know that, like, having no supporters there's such a big part of it, but at this stage, I think even if people could watch a game on TV, I think they'd be happy enough, and it'd probably be a bit of a lift for people as well. So even people are if you talk to anyone, they're just saying that they miss even going to games and stuff. So I think if we could get something, it'll be good. But obviously, if it's not safe to do so, there's no point putting anybody at risk.
Yeah, I think fans would lap it up, by the way. I don't think there'd be any question on that front when we understand that we can't actually get to the games. There was Sergio Aguero, I don't know if you saw that this morning, was probably the most high-profile footballer in the Premier League that's come out this morning to say that players are actually scared of getting back to training because the potential knock-on, obviously, for their families, whether it's parents or kids or whatever. What would your levels of concern be around that? Obviously, you've been involved in a group of 30-odd people.
Yeah, like, that's the tricky side of it is if, like, you don't know, anybody could pick up the virus off anybody else and bring it back home then or whatever. But I think even if people could train in 3s or 4s, it'd be a start. But I don't know, honestly. I don't know. Like, until they get a vaccine for it, are we ever going to be able to train as a full group? Or I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's tricky, like, and when you see people putting their lives at risk, as I said, in hospitals and stuff, I don't know, you nearly feel stupid going back training as a group either. But look, I think but obviously the other side of it is if it could be done, I think it'd be great for people even to get to watch games and stuff, even if there was no supporters at the games, just to get something back, some bit of normality back. But obviously it has to be safe, and the health services have to give the go ahead first. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's very tricky. All right, yeah, we've been talking to a bunch of players. I'm sure you follow the story of the Carlow footballer this week who has failed a doping test, and it started a conversation obviously around the country in terms of the how informed players are about what they should and shouldn't be doing. From the conversations we've had on air and off air, it seems that it can vary wildly from team to team. What's your sense of how on top of the information that you and your group have been made of in terms of what you should or shouldn't be taking? Yeah,
we've at the start of the year there, our doctor Ian O'Connor and Shane O'Neill, our manager, have they basically just sit us down and go through everything and say that if there's anything that we take or anything that we buy ourselves, just to make sure that, or even if there's any medication that we get prescribed by a doctor, if you're sick or something, just to run everything by them, because you never know what's in anything. And like we're very, I think they've made the point very clear to us on numerous, not just this year, but every year they always do it. They always make sure that, and they always make sure to let us know that it falls back on the player, and it's not the manager or the doctor that gets the ban, it's the player that gets it, and they always make us very clear of that. So I think our squad are very aware of it and would always be conscious of it if we get prescribed anything. a doctor if he were sick or whatever. So I think it's probably so easy to happen if you people can buy. If you buy a supplement online and start taking it, you might think, look, it'll be safe enough, but you don't know what's in it, and it's just you can be unlucky that way. So I would have some sort of sympathy from that side of things, but obviously I don't know the full story, so it's not a nice story to be hearing, but
Yeah, I do think that it's great to hear a current intercounty player saying that it comes down to personal responsibility, because it's difficult to get away from it, isn't it? We don't know the ins and outs of this case. Ray Walker has come out to say that it found its way. He can't explain how it found its way into his system, but that keeping it at a level of personal responsibility seems like the only way to properly govern this thing.
Yeah, but I suppose as GA players, you don't grow up aware of it either. So, if there's a bit of responsibility on the doctors and the managers and that to make every player aware of it, and even to keep reminding them of it, because it's probably fairly easy if you're buying stuff online or whatever to take something in that's on the list of the banned substances without even knowing. And you probably didn't even feel that he was being that his performance was being enhanced by it. But that's it's not a great story, as I said, but it's just it's probably is down to the players. It's the players that get the ban at the end of the day. It's not the manager or the team doctor. So the players have to make sure that they're well on top of it. And I think even this story coming out now, and I know there was another one there a couple of years ago. It's every player needs to make sure that they're not taking it for granted, because just to make sure that they're running everything by their team doctor or whatever, and make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's a great reminder for people, and it's good that we can have the conversation, I suppose, off the back of it as well. I don't know if you saw, before we let you off, we've been selecting our off-the-ball Mount Rushmores from the various counties. We've Westmeath coming under the grill very shortly, but it was the other maroon and white we did earlier in the week, and it caused no end of debate either. I don't know if you followed it, but Mt Rushmore in the company of Michael Lister made their selections of their Galway Mount Rushmore, and it went to Paraic Joyce, Joe Canning, Christy O'Connor Jr. and Joe Connolly were the four that went up there. Would you have any opinions about anybody who was unlucky to miss out?
Yeah, I was having to think about it there last night, and I was Joe Canning. I think definitely deserved to be there. He's all-time top scorer for Galway, I think, and I think he's only just behind Henry Shefflin in the whole country. So I think that's a fair achievement. So he definitely deserves to be there. I was thinking for the football, obviously Paraic Joyce was an unbelievable player, but even for the week that was in it, I think Kieran Fitzgerald deserves an honourable mention anyway for the 14 county medals, and I think he's 7 Connacht, 4 All-Ireland club, and he's in All-Ireland with Galway as well. So there's not too many other players in the history of the Galway that'll have anything like that. And even I think from a Camogie side of things, I think Niamh Kilkenny, she's still playing obviously. I think she's 6 All-Stars and two All-Irelands. Galway have only won 3 ever, and she's won 2 of them. So I think we'll give the split it between the male and the female. I think she definitely deserves a mention as well.
Yeah, I think Kieran Fitzgerald and Kieran Fitzgerald can feel rightly hard done by that they haven't featured in it. Listen, best of luck over the weekend with the tournament. Do you know who you're playing first up, or is that job been made yet?
I'm playing Sligo, who is Real Madrid, so the Madrid derby.
Who's representing Sligo, do you know yet?
I haven't really looked at the list now, but it's Real Madrid anyway, so I'm sure I'll be up against it.
Very good. Well, listen, best of luck with it, and thanks a million for taking the time this morning, Paraic. You've been very good.
Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. That's Paraic Mannion on the line there, giving us his thoughts ahead of that charity fundraiser this weekend. As mentioned, it's streaming live, and you can go ahead and check it out. We'll put the details up on our social channels as well, all for raising money for the HSE and the NHS frontline workers who are doing such tremendous work around the country over the last couple of months now, to be fair, and no end in sight just yet as well. So I'm sure that all Money's raised will go to a very worthy cause. And a reminder as well that it's 9:13 on this Friday morning. Thanks very much for joining us so far on OTB AM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Lots of good stuff coming your way over the next little while as well. Up next, we're getting into our OTB Mount Rushmore in Westmeath with Conor Moore. Conor Sketch is joining us to give us his thoughts. There's also a crappy quiz coming your way. And if you've missed anything from the show this week, you can catch it all back on our YouTube channel. It's also up on offtheball.com or wherever it is that you get your podcast from. We've got Galway's Mount Rushmore that we've just mentioned there. All the chat about the Last Dance this week, Off the Ball on episodes 3 and 4 there. Owen, Ronan, Jarlath and Kieran Donaghy as well in conversation about that. The Derry Girls actor Louisa Harland was introduced to our OTB Culture Hall of Fame this week. Some good stuff up there about Gomorrah and obviously about Derry Girls as well, all with Now TV. Professor Sam McConkey was on in relation to what happens next in terms of a return for sport. Neil Tracy on that Ireland's greatest professional 15 team. Eamon McGee and Mickey Quinn on drugs and the GAA and education of it and around the testing as well. With football with Daniel Harris and Graham Hunter, and the Classic Game Club reflected on Ireland, England from Italia 90 as well. So that is pretty much all up there. Plenty more as well. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast stream wherever it is that you get yours, and we'll timestamp all of that as well, so you can scroll through wherever it is you want to get to. Mount Rushmore of Westmeath up next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio, Thursday Night Football with John Giles.
Who was that talking?
Troy Deeney.
Well, I think he should keep his mouth shut and have more respect for the opposition when he plays against them. And look at himself. If he was such a great player and was able to do all the things that he's talking to other people not doing, he wouldn't be on the bench. He'd be out there playing.
The best analysis of all the week's football from Ireland's #1 football man.
Obviously, after the Munich disaster, it was thrust on Bobby. And there was an awful lot of pressure on Bobby. He was carrying the team and he handled himself brilliantly and he played unbelievable stuff.
John Giles, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
I'm not worried about it. I can stand over this. Cora Staunton, Lee McHale, Kevin Kilban and Kieran MacDonald.
OTB AM's Mount Rushmore.
You're welcome back to Friday's OTB AM. A little bit of a switcheroo here because Adrian is very much moving into the other chair. He's going full pundit because it is the Mount Rushmore of what he will say is the greatest county of all, which is Westmeath. Delighted to say as well that Golf Channel's Conor Moore is with us. How are you, Conor?
I'm doing well. How are you, lads?
Not too bad. This must be an unusual situation, judging the Mount Rushmore of Westmeath all the way from Miami.
No, it is, yeah. I've noticed I did a Insta Live there last week with Conor Mortimer, and he put up on Twitter, he says, I'll be talking to Westmeath GA legend Conor Sketches this evening. And I kind of thought, how has no one jumped on that? Because I said, Mort, the last time I had any involved from Westmeath, I got dropped from the Westmeath County Minor panel at Easter before the final cut of the championship, but to have made legendary status now, I've done very well for myself.
When you think Westmeath, Mount Rushmore, when you think about Westmeath sporting legends, is there any sort of moment in your life that gets evoked?
Oh yeah, 2004, the Leinster Championship was probably the most enjoyable summer I've ever had in my life. It's one of those, like, obviously you'll never get it back. They can win all the Leinsters, they want to win again. But that was, I remember being, I think I was about 14, 15, but I bought my first pint in a pub. There was no rules that night. Now, and I'm just about 5'6", 5'5.5". I'd say I must have been about 4'10" when I was 14, because I was always just really small, and I made a good sprout when I was about 16. But I don't know how it was, but that night there was literally no rules. You could walk up to the bar, pint Heineken, please. Pint Heineken, please. Give your money, and that was it. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, an unbelievable time. I dare say it's going to be mentioned a bit over the course of the next little while. So the vague parameters here, I will say vague because it's up to you guys to really come up with the rules yourselves, is for Adrian to come at us with his Mount Rushmore, his 4 greatest Westmeath sporting legends. Conor, you might give your 4 then. It doesn't matter how many of a difference you've got, you will only be able to make one change to Adrian's Mount Rushmore at the end. We will also have a final pitch from a special guest very shortly as well. Adrian, I may as well hand this over to you. Take us away in terms of your Westmeath Mount Rushmore, your thought process, and who our first face on that mountain might be.
I've been so nervous about this one. I have to admit, I haven't been this nervous since half-time against Meath in 2015, but the palms are sweaty, and as you can see, like, I've spent a huge amount of time doing the set here behind me. It's sort of representative of a lot of the people, the 3 of the 4 that I'm going to put up on Mount Rushmore anyway, so that'll probably give people an indication straight away. And I initially, when I started thinking about it, I thought, it'll probably be pretty straightforward. Like, we don't, when you go through it, have the pick of like great counties on, like Kerry, obviously, Dublin, listen to Galway during the week. Like, there isn't that volume of quality necessarily, but there is some serious picks in there. So I'm going to just go straight in with a couple and then give you the people we were thinking about. We might leave GAA for the minute because I think that constitutes the vast majority of the runners and riders. So I'm going to go straight in with the person that I believe is in the running to be the greatest Westmeath sport person of all time, John Evan. I think when you boil it down, like, the names that come up in the boxing circles obviously are himself and Joe Ward, but I think that when you look at the quantity of medals, it probably tips slightly in Joe Ward's favour. Like, heading into an exciting time obviously from him on the professional side of things. And a hatful of medals from his amateur game. But really, it's that Olympic silver medal for John Evan. And I watched back actually some of the semi-final and the final over the last couple of days from London in 2012. Like, you forget that he beat the top ranked, the world champion from Cuba, the reigning champion from Cuba, in the semi-finals, and didn't just beat him either. Like, he was 3 points up with a round to go. Like, blitzed this guy in the semi-finals and came up. A lot of people, when I mentioned the name Luke Campbell, will remember that bantamweight final in London, and Campbell with all the home sport behind him. But John Evan, like, for his style of fighting that week, for the smile that he brought to proceedings, you're coming into such a pressure zone in the copper box that week, and he's smiling, he's on his toes. The crowd are behind him all the way up to the final when he's taking on a Brit, obviously. But when you look at his career, the records that he's had, European gold in Minsk 2013 and the European Championships, 2 bronze at the world stage, and both times, by the way, losing by a single point, a countback, and 2011 bronze in Baku, saw him become the first Irish male boxer, by the way, to win 2 world championship medals, and his crowning glory, of course, as well, the silver in London 2012. And at that point, becoming the first Irish male, it should be said, because obviously a female had gone before, to medal at European, world and Olympic level. What a career. 14-0, I think, at professional level. Had a big win back in November against Freddie Fonseca. Probably still a bit of work to be done at that end to fully prove himself. He's over 30 now, so obviously time will be running out on him. But what a career. And I think that, as a first pick, and arguably the greatest ever Irish sports person, I'm putting John Evan up there straight away.
Geez, that's a pretty convincing case straight off the bat there, Adrian. Conor, we'll come to you in just a moment just to see how much of that actually overlaps with your Mount Rushmore. You might just go straight into your second one there for us, Adrian.
Yeah, so I think when you talk about soccer and Athlone, one name that always gets mentioned, and people laugh about it and say he shouldn't be included in this list. But listen, it's where his links are from, and so I'm running with it either way. And we don't have a huge amount of international footballers to pick from. John Aldridge is one of the runners and riders. Not putting him on. I was tempted. I
didn't want to be all nationalist or anything.
How seriously did you consider Aldo, Conor?
I did have a look at it. I didn't consider him though.
That's only because he's from Athlone, though, Conor. Come on.
For me, it's I don't know. I didn't. There was another soccer man that I really considered, but Aldridge wasn't one of them. I did have him. I wrote him down, but he wasn't on my. He definitely wasn't making my world.
The thing that goes against him, obviously, largely, is that he doesn't have that same. Kevin Kilbane obviously has his roots, and to be fair, more direct roots to Mayo than Aldridge has to Athlone. It was his great grandmother Mary Mills was from Athlone, and but obviously, so there isn't that connection. Like, if you gave John Aldridge a map, would he be able to pinpoint where Athlone is? You probably doubt it. So
for the middle, John.
Probably a key criteria.
Never even see the wall.
The name that I'm going to go for my second pick on the Mount Rushmore is Turlough O'Connor. So this is a guy, and we talk about. There's been a lot of recency bias, I would say, on the list so far. People
particularly the first list that was done by Nathan, like the fact that he forgot like the 9-time Olympic medalist was unlucky not to make the cut. Like, you must be effing joking me. Anyway, like, we're not exactly going back to the annals of time for Turlough O'Connor, but, you know, it's 1960s. He's a name that any reasonable League of Ireland fan, the name will trip off the tongue. A Bohemians legend, scored like hatfuls of goals at Bows, hatfuls of goals at Dundalk. Laid at loan as a manager to a couple of league titles, 81 and 83, an FAI Cup as well. Really interesting story from a really interesting family, by the way, as well. His brother, Michael O'Connor, another League of Ireland legend, Podrick O'Connor, played for Athlone. His father, Turlough O'Connor, played basketball for Ireland. His sister, Kathleen McCarth, played basketball, I think, for Ireland as well. Like, an incredible Irish sporting family. But it's Turlough really is the standout. He had a big chance to make it in England as well. Went to Fulham in 1966, of all years, would you believe. Had a pretty torrid time with injury. Bobby Robson was manager, I think, at the time. Only turned out once for Fulham. Went home, ended up contacting Bobby Robson saying, listen, I ain't going back. It's not for me. But as I said, went on to have an unbelievable, I think he might be still in the top 5 all-time scorers in the League of Ireland. So that gives you a bit of a sense of what you're dealing with. And to cap it all off, 7 caps for the Republic of Ireland is the one that, when we talk about the grain of rice that tilts it, that's the grain of rice that tilts it for me. That means that he has to be up on the Westmeath Mount Rushmore.
It's interesting that he's in there. I was I wonder, is that the football person that you were referring to there, Conor, that you considered?
Yeah, considered. And now this is definitely from my football ignorance, going back to that time. I've only learnt a lot about Turlough. I've heard his name before, but only in the last couple of days, and I have been blown away that there was a fella that good. You know, didn't know we had any real top soccer players, but he really was, like, and he's 4th in the all-time League of Ireland scoring list. Like, scored twice for Ireland. You know, he scored in European competitions, scored against Rangers as well. That was a big one we liked. Yeah, he initially wasn't on my wall, and now he's in the 4th, 5th spot.
I see.
But it's like, it's hard not to see him up on the wall. You know, he was just so good.
The persuasion techniques are working here, Adrian.
I think some of it will be like it's a shitty. This is a shitty task, right? That absolutely needs to be said, because like, it's such a difficult call. Like, we'll get into some of the GA names in a minute, and like, one of them particularly you can't leave off the list. But like, you're trying to weigh that up with somebody who obviously achieved at the international level, and that's the difficulty. There's no sort of comparative. Like, it's a shitty task in some ways, but for me, the 7 caps is the thing that tips it over for me.
Who is the GAA person, Adrian?
I'll just give you a bit of a sense of some of the runners and riders I think on. Well,
Sure.
just in terms of who I was thinking about, and Conor can definitely jump in at any point that he wants. Like, John Keane is not a player that you can disregard in a conversation like this. He's the only, I think, double All-Star ever for Westmeath. Obviously won that first one in 2004, a big part of that team. Like, a bit of Dennis Irwin's about him, I'd say, kind of like, not only from a positional point of view, but certainly sort of was an 8 out of 10 almost every game, like an absolute quality player. Went on to win one again, I think it would have been 2008 after that. But quiet and efficient, and like pushing hard for a conversation like this. Rory O'Connell's another one. The county's first ever football All-Star, big part in 2004, himself and David O'Shaughnessy lording the skies, like when, you know, winning that primary possession around midfield from the kick-out was such a key thing. So Rory has to be in a conversation like this. Willie Lowry, there was a couple of names that would have been in the recesses of your mind, I suppose, coming into this, that Tom Hunt was a guy that knows a thing or two about the history of Westmeath football, although he's not from Westmeath, or Westmeath sport, and was a guy I'd hop some of these off. Spoke like very fondly about Willie Lowry. He reckons arguably the best all-round player to have ever come out of the county. Dual player, played off either foot, bit of an eccentric, which you love about your sports people. Big scoring midfielders in the 80s, and toured. Apparently the All-Stars used to pick a dual player at some point. You know, somebody who was of a high enough standard in both goals, and apparently he was that pick in 82. Spike Fagan, I'm sure Conor's going to give him a shout as well. Mullingar Shamrocks, 8 county titles. Like, suffered probably from not being surrounded by anybody really, of any needed players around him. Would have been unbelievable in the Westmeath teams that were to come after him after he'd retired. Fergal Murray is one of the few that has that holy trinity: the minor, the under-21 All-Ireland, and then that Leinster in 2004. on the hurling side, David Kilcoyne, County's first ever All-Star in either code. Brendan Murtagh, arguably one of the finest hurlers the county's ever seen. And Jobber McGrath is a name that we need to mention as well, that, going back over the years again, played for Westmeath for 15 years and widely acclaimed by those who saw him, hurled for Loughlane Gales. So I'm sure Conor's been nodding away at some of them that terms of runners and riders, but
I'm a big Willie Lowry fan.
Yeah.
Had a good session with him there. Well, usually I'm usually at the Westmeath New York dinner dance. He's the Mick Jagger of Castletown Gagan. He's got the long hair. He's walking around. He's one of the coolest men. I'm like him when I'm his age. And I actually was drinking with him out in Castletown a couple of months ago and met him at a funeral. But he's good pals with my uncle. My uncle was telling me about him. He was just supposed to be unbelievable. He's brilliant. Then he went out to New York. He was class. Spike again. Man of the match for Ireland against Australia in the second game in 86. He was, the first high-profile footballer we had. And then he was a part of that brilliant Shamrocks team that won all those. I definitely think in terms of mentions, I think John Heslin deserves a mention. And I know he's still playing or whatever, but like if Rory's in it and John Keane, and I know they've won the Leinster Championship, but like I'd say, imagine what Heslin would have been doing if he was back on that team.
And people talked about him as like the Michael Murphy, like that sort of quality.
And just brilliant, and like just from what, like obviously would have seen him up close, especially in club games. And I remember, like he was 17 at the first county final, I think. Like I remember the under 21. Remember we got to the Leinster final. I think the Dubs bet us. He was
the Blitz
awesome. That was the time. It was like pulling balls out of the sky, but very of that ilk, like a Willie Lowry, 2 feet, all the skills of a smaller man, and he's a big dude. And then I thought on the hurling side, David Kilcoyne, definitely. He's our only All-Star on the hurling side. Brendan Murtagh, I also thought deserves a shout. Like he's a freak. He's still going. I'd say Westmeath would still love to have him in the team. He's a selector with them now at the minute, like 6 county championships. And he's got 2 with the Downs actually in football. He's actually a very, very good footballer as well. But yeah, in and around that. But I think we all know who the GA person going up on the wall is.
It's going to be Desi, Adrian, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't, as an Athlone club, and it doesn't give me any satisfaction at all to be sticking him up there. But listen, he's got to go. He's got to go up there. Like inarguably, like when you talk to people, I've been talking to people over the last couple of weeks about all of this, and like it's just you can't but put him up there. Like the record is there. Like he would have got into any forward 6 of any county at the time that he played, like in his pomp in the 2000s. The style of the man, like that sort of, like he wasn't particularly tall either, Conor, but he'd be like that low centre of gravity. He'd sort of have the ball in 2 hands and have defenders back in the heels. Like obviously had the responsibility of the dead ball, which didn't always go his way. I was sat behind him against Meath that year when oh, Jesus Christ. Like,
you know what? I'd nearly take him off Mount Rushmore for that. But I'm in a WhatsApp group and the boys always sending that he did the ad then, or he missed the free or whatever. But yeah, he just, Desi beyond that wall in 200 or 300 years. 200 or 300 years. He's, like, I remember the first time I heard of Desi was the under 21s, got to the All-Ireland final in 99. The Bet Kerry, 112-9. Like that Kerry team had like, I think Tom O'Sullivan was marking him that day. There was Tomas O'Shea, Paul Galvin was playing. And that really kicked it all off it was the minors kicked it all off for Westmeath. But he was, like you said, he wasn't very tall. He wasn't known for having a great left foot or anything. And yet he still kicked 6-7 points every game. Like,
yeah.
He was just unbelievable.
There's a bit of that, like that Sean Kavanagh type shuffle, and you knew it was coming, and there was still very little you could do about it.
Exactly, yeah. I remember 2014, like they won a county championship last year. We played them in the final in 2014, and I remember the narrative, definitely from the players, was, "Oh, Desi's finished. Like Desi's too slow, and there's no, he's no problem. We don't have to worry about him tomorrow." We were very confident going into the game, and he played at centre forward. And he genuinely ripped us apart. From centre forward, he wasn't playing in the corner. He wasn't, his usual, corner forward style. It was like he was Perlo. He was just getting the ball. He was spraying passes here, there, and everywhere. We were never really within touching distance of them that day. it was a game that just from start to finish, they just grinded out. But he was a part of like a great team. I actually picked the best club team for the last 20 years with a few Gary Castle lads. They had such a good team. Like I was thinking, you could only pick 3 from each club. They could have 5 or 6 on it, you know. And they just built that team kind of and around Desi, and he drove it on. And he is I think for me, he's number 1.
Really?
Yeah, he'd be he was. Obviously, wouldn't be biased. Like it's a GA thing, but for me, just growing up, everybody wanted to be Desi Dolan. Like my last picture of competitive GA action is me holding Desi back by the I must send it to you. It's very, very
That's
funny.
class.
Literally, I'm behind him and I'm literally holding his jersey.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Maybe that'll be the sculpture that goes into Mount Rushmore. Right?
Like I think it's such an important. I think the reason why Desi be number 1 for a lot of people is just that very simple thing: is that he literally wore the Westmeath jersey. And like we're going to talk about players who played for Ireland. We've got rugby coming up in just a moment. I dare say, you can see that jersey behind you. But the GEA is the embodiment of the county here, and whoever is the number 1 GEA star tends to be the number 1 person associated with each county when we're going through these things on a Mount Rushmore basis. And I'm not surprised to hear that at all. Who have you been speaking to, Adrian, that's been giving you this information that Desi was going to be number 1? Who have you been scouting with?
What do you mean, give me the information?
You said you've been picking up the phone and...
I rang a few people. I used to have a couple of mates that played around that 2014 to get a sense of what was going on. I know we've John Heslin coming up as well, I think a little bit later. He's got a couple of good stories about him, but I just try to canvass a couple of people who played with him and who would have been around the scene for years. And like there isn't an argument. It's the point. Like we've mentioned all the other names. John Keane is a name that definitely pushes him close, I think. But as I mentioned, like there's a bit more of the Dennis Irwins about John Keane that he maybe goes under the radar a small bit.
Well, he does, yeah, but he was like I know from talking like Alan Brogan to tell you, or Colin Parkinson, then like he was the worst guy. He just did not want to mark John Keane. And in 2004, I don't know if he played under Luke Dempsey at senior level, because it was first under Pawdy in 2004 that he started playing for the senior team. Or he might have played a little bit, but then didn't. There was something there. He didn't play under Luke anyway, 2002-03. But 2004, he was just unbelievable. Like he gets a hand in. Like anytime he got the ball, he just gave it off. Yeah. Someone said, I don't know if this stat was true, but I remember it was widely thrown out there at the time that he only took 1 solo during Westmeath's championship run in 2004.
Wow.
As soon as he got it, he just gave it away. He wasn't full of great skill or anything, but he just was so tenacious and he timed everything just so well, like didn't dive in, just got the hand in. He was just such a crafty cornerback. Like he's one of the best cornerbacks in my opinion. Like even like we played Wexford, he was the guy on Matty Ford. He was the guy, he marked everybody. He definitely is the best defender Westmeath have ever had.
Adrian, we should crack on and get the final member of your Mount Rushmore before we allow Conor to make a change.
Well, I'll give a couple of others that were in the mixer.
Okay.
Mark Rowan definitely can't leave this conversation without mentioning him. Like big contender for the Final Four as well. Double gold medalist in London 2012, twice a World Cup winner, silver medalist in Spain. The World Championship was probably the biggest thing that he achieved. Played Leinster, played for Westmeath as well at minor level, and was just into the under 21s before his accident. So like absolutely pushing here. Sort of 5, 6, 7, you would think in that direction. It's slightly controversial this time. I didn't really know what to do with it, but I went with it anyway, and I put Michael and Eddie O'Leary in the mix. I didn't know what to do. Like there's that great Brian Kerr phrase about horse racing, like is it the horse, is it the trainer, is it the owner, is it the jockey? I don't know who to all responsible for all of it, but I think like when it boils down to it, they've flown the maroon and white colours internationally with unbelievable success. You just have to look at the record, what they've achieved over the last few years. So screw it, I'm putting them in the short list anyway, either way. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but on they go. And then after that, the last one that I would put up on the list would be Robbie Henshaw. Like, you know, again, watching over the last couple of weeks, the lists that have come out, like you get whoever's made the final calls on these things over the last few weeks, they'll say, yeah, but like they're a great player, but you know, like they're still active, like, you know, they've loads to run in their career, and it's used as this sort of thing to like, oh, we would have given it to you, but like you're still playing. But I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm putting Robbie Henshaw up there. I think from a Westmeath perspective, having done what he's done over the last number of years, he's still only like, I think maybe 26, something like that. Played for Connacht, obviously won the first ever Pro 12 there. What he's won with Leinster, back-to-back Pro 14s, won Heineken Cup, beat the All Blacks all on his own in Chicago. Like represented the Lions, got cruelly injured, obviously had to come back. Will go on to achieve bigger and better things. I'm putting that out there. But regardless of that, deserves to be up there on what he's achieved already. Should have another 12 or 15 caps only for all the injuries. Robbie Henshaw has got to be up there.
So Robbie Henshaw, the final member of your current Mount Rushmore at the moment. Just to recap, it's Turlough O'Connor, Desi Dolan, John Joe Nevin and Robbie Henshaw. Conor, while you're mulling over who you were going to change, if you were going to change, maybe he's got it perfect and you were absolutely rubber stamped this Mount Rushmore. While you were having a think...
You tell that grin he's not, there's not.
While you were having a think, I just want to play you a quick clip from OTB AM from back in the summer of 2018. Now, Adrian is prone to changing his mind because this is the Mount Rushmore he picked back then.
Quick question for you, Adrian. Who's your for Mount Rushmore in the Westmeath Mount Rushmore?
Seeing as you haven't included him, I mean, incredibly, it's a slight on the man, but I will happily take ownership of Paddy O'Shea. I'm not sure there's a mountain high enough. I think the highest mountain in Westmeath is probably about the height of this desk. It's a pretty flat area, but I'm going to put him in there.
So one Kerry man on the Westmeath Mount Rushmore.
I can do what I want with it. It's my Mount Rushmore, and he's an honorary Westmeath man as far as I'm concerned. John Aldridge, of course, has to be on the Westmeath Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Obviously.
Okay.
Joe Dolan is going to, I mean, he's got to be in there. And after that, it's a kind of a toss-up between, like, Niall Horan, Brezzy, Spike Fagan, Rory O'Connell, Desi, that sort of thing.
Robbie Henshaw?
Robbie Henshaw. How did I miss Robbie Henshaw?
Well, because you were bad at putting together Mount Rushmore, you picked a Kerry man.
There you go. That is Adrian's Mount Rushmore from the summer.
Not a bad stab off the top of my head.
No, with the names you mentioned, I was a little bit annoyed I didn't get at least an honour.
Hang on now. You were working for Joe at the time. I couldn't mention it.
Conor, if you have to change Adrian's 2020 version of Mount Rushmore, what are you doing? What are you thinking of altering?
Well, first off, that just made me think of something like when Paddy was mentioned. Obviously, Paddy, in my opinion, is down. He's on the mountain in Kerry. But also, Luke Dempsey deserves a mention for what he kickstarted in Westmeath. I don't think we would have had a Leinster Championship if it was only for Luke. He came around in 95 and what he did. It's my earliest sporting memory, actually, in 95, watching the All-Ireland final.
Another import, Conor. That's the difficulty there.
Yeah, I know. But he lives in Westmeath. I think he's a Westmeath man at this stage. He teaches in Westmeath. He lives in Mullingar. But anyway, my Mount Rushmore initially was Desi Dolan, Robbie Henshaw, John Joe Nevin, and Pamela Greville was my original mountain. I just think no one has had a bigger impact probably in their sport than Pamela Greville has. You know, she kicked it off with an All-Ireland Junior B in 2011, I think it was. Then won the junior, then won the Premier Junior a couple of years ago, then won the intermediate last year, intermediate player of the year, and then a Leinster Junior with Raharney. She literally has been the heartbeat of Westmeath Camogie and dragged it all the way from Junior B to now they're playing in senior. I think this would have been her first time ever playing a senior match. Now, obviously, the coronavirus has put a stop to that till next year. But she was staying off for another year or two. She's from like a massive hurling family out in Raharney, the Grevilles. Her dad was like a legend in the goals for years. The brothers are making big names in the coaching. Well, Pamela Greville, for me, it's like, and it's by no means like a gender thing or a woman thing. She genuinely is deserving, in my opinion, of being up on that mountain. She just for her sporting achievements alone.
Right, so what we seem to have here is a battle between Pamela Greville and Turlough O'Connor. Before you confirm it, am I right in saying that, Conor, it is between those two for the last spot?
Yeah, it is.
Well, before you commit to it, and I'll give you a little bit of extra time to mull over, because we've started doing this last pitch here on OTB AM's Mount Rushmore. So one last persuasion technique. Today it's from Westmeath referee Barry Kelly. So he sent us in this video. Have a look at this.
My fourth choice, and I suppose my Mount Rushmore definite choice, is a hurler by the name of John Jobber McGrath. who was a Westmeath hurler in the late 1940s, throughout the 1950s, and for about the first 5 or 6 years of the 1960s. In fact, we've just gone past the 40th anniversary of his death. No less a figure than Eamon Cregan said that John Jobber McGrath was a boyhood hero of his, and Eamon Cregan recalled seeing him scoring 4 goals and 4 points for Westmeath against Limerick in a National League game in 1956, the same year in which he represented Leinster at Railway Cup level, in which they defeated Munster in the final. He hurled for his club Rickardstown for over 20 years, winning 3 Westmeath senior hurling championships, and he was selected in 1984 on the GAA's team of the century that had never won an All-Ireland senior hurling medal. So he's regarded certainly as a legend in Westmeath hurling circles. So they're my 4 choices. Just to finish off, Tommy and the other lads, I was thinking of a Mt Rushmore sporting moors in the Mullingar area, and I came up with Conor's uncle Ned, his dad Tom, no mean golfer, his younger brother Dean, and his first cousin Eddie. And in fact, if I went for a second Mt Rushmore for moors, it would include his cousin Keith, his other cousin Gary, his older brother Darren, and his uncle Jimmy Chute. So just in case Conor Moore tries to claim that his football career was put on hold by his career in the world of entertainment, that is not the case. He wouldn't make a second Mt Rushmore sporting moors, and plenty of other lads will tell you that as well. Okay, signing off from Mullingar. Thanks lads, bye.
The drink finished us all.
Has other than the very persuasive techniques on the Mount Rushmore of moors, has he persuaded you against your decision here, Conor?
With the jobber, has he persuaded me? Yeah, the only thing is the more I've read about Turlough O'Connor in the last couple of days, the more, like, obviously putting him, to me it's still Pamela Gravel.
Okay.
Number 4, but I am definitely biased towards this time or this generation. Sure. And I'm not appreciating what's gone before me because I wasn't there. But
well, you are allowed to make one change. I mean, that these are the rules of the game. Just to confirm, though, the person you were looking to change is Turlough O'Connor. You want to keep Desi Dolan, John Joe Nevin, and Robbie Henshaw, and you were looking to replace Turlough O'Connor with Pamela Greville.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe Robbie and just texting him. If you were retired, you'd definitely be on it.
But we'll get to you next year.
I like from all like when I started doing this, like, and I was texting a few people and everything. Pam, I don't know if I can take Turlough, because you have a GA person up on the mountain, you have a soccer person, a boxing person, a rugby person. The way it's done, there's a nice blend in it. I don't want to take anyone off the mountain. You know what I mean? Like, what would you think, Adrian?
Like, Pamela Gravel was definitely sitting there as I didn't have her in consideration for the top 4 until I heard your argument about her, and what she's achieved is unbelievable. Like, that Galway game, Westmeath were 7 points down. I think at half time she scored 9 points in the game. Like, and it's not only to do with that, as you said. There's the bigger emphasis. My top four. If you want to swap one in, we'll swap one in, and we'll figure something to get one of them out there. But I would leave the top 4, my 4 as the 4.
So is that it then? Are we sticking with Adrian's because of the nice democratic the decision to spread it across 4 sports with Turlough, Desi Dolan, John Joe Nevin, and Robbie Henshaw? We've just got to wrap up here. So are you happy with that, Conor?
You get to shout.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep it as it is. Yeah, at this point, just from honestly educating myself over the last couple of days. Turlough is he's a real sporting legend. Like I couldn't disrespect him by taking him down.
Well, it's an exceptional Mount Rushmore. Just to confirm, it's Turlough O'Connor, Desi Dolan, John Joe Nevin, Robbie Henshaw. Before we let you go, Conor, where is this mountain in Westmeath?
The Hill of Uisneach.
Perfect. You happy with that, Adrian?
No, what we need to do is look at the record we have as a county of transporting like brilliant things from West Kerry up to Westmeath. We've no mountain high enough. Let's ship a lot of West Kerry Ventry rock up to Shannon, and we can put it wherever Conor decides he wants to put it after that. Pile it on top of the Hill of Uisneach. That's good for me.
Lads, great stuff. Enjoyed it. Up Westmeath.
Cheers, lad.
Thanks, Conor, fair play. Thanks.
Have a good one.
OTB AM's Mount Rushmore.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me!
September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
Welcome along to the Shoutia segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of team off the ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome tonight's contestants. Our first contestant today was described last week as the classiest man in Westmeath, coming in ahead of Sir Walter Raleigh. Now, Jimmy Allen on YouTube has been in touch to say some poor research from Owen there. Sir Walter Raleigh was never in Westmeath, let alone from there. There is a house in Mullingar Killua House with a plaque with his name on it. That is it. So apologies to everyone in Westmeath. Give it up for your native Adrian. Who's your daddy Barry?
Yeah,
Why is there a plaque in Mullingar though?
Adrian?
Good question.
Well, that's quite obvious, Nathan. He obviously, when he had his crowning glory, when he came to invent the bicycle or whatever it was he did it in Mullingar Town Hall. And so they put a plaque up there to commemorate him.
Fantastic. Good to see you're continuing the high standard of knowledge that you have about Westmeath that you will also, I'm sure, bring to their Mount Rushmore.
It's apparently there's beside the plaque there's a cardboard cut out of Sir Walter Raleigh. It's called Sir Walter Raleigh Plaza. Get the Supermax there and everything. It's fantastic. As you say, he did invent the chip basically. Our next contestant today is still reeling from his response to his Mayo Mount Rushmore, which has been described by some critics as shambolic. One review said, this chiseler of stone is clearly less interested in Olympic and All-Ireland medals than who he can go for a pint with after the pandemic lockdown. Give it up for Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Listen, every county has different criteria. What's the issue? The only person who's described it as shambolic is Adrian Barry. So
that was obviously somebody else.
It was a disgrace. I actually had a DM from somebody earlier on in relation to the ongoing selection of the Westmeath one, and it was a plea to not be as shambolic as the Mayo one. So I'm not alone.
So sorry. Again, who are you taking out of the Mayo one?
That's your call, but leaving out the guy who was the 9-time, the guy who was the 9-time Olympic medalist.
So again, he deserves to be on this Mayo Mount Rushmore. Tell me something else about him. Tell me something else about him that you know aside from the two lines I gave.
Needs to be known. Is there anything that needs to be known? That's not the question. This is pure Trumpism now. That's not the question. The guy won 9 Olympic medals. Am I right?
Well, surely if he deserves to be on a Mount Rushmore, you would know these basic facts about him.
It's not my county. This is your county, so I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, but we're talking about a great county.
You can't even remember.
You know, I know everything about Martin Sheridan. Yeah, 100 years ago.
I mean, how much do you know about him before Mount Rushmore?
110 years ago.
Who, me?
Move on.
But you're who? It doesn't matter.
I'm very proud of the Mayo. I'm very proud of it. But sure, lots of people won lots of Olympic medals a century ago.
9 Olympic medals.
Figures are falling off a cliff.
I'm happy enough. Our final contestant today blames Mick McCarthy for everything bad that's ever happened to him. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. I've completely messed up this intro. He said, bloody stupid Mick McCarthy when he dropped his fork the other day. He said, bloody stupid Mick McCarthy when lockdown restrictions were rumoured to be extended beyond next Monday. It's Ger, hater of Mick McCarthy, Gilroy. Congratulations on getting a complete intro. I clearly don't care enough about that final intro.
I'm a lover, not a hater. Big Mick knows that.
That is very true. I should say this week, no devices. It's come to our attention really that there may or may not be cheating going on. So the device that you were looking at right now is the only device you should be looking at. Can I see both of your hands, please? And none of this under the table sort of
Look,
stuff.
Mom, no hands.
Thank you. None of this under the table stuff. None of this weird third hand sort of stuff that's been going on.
Sure, unless we sit here like this for duration, there's no other way. Like, what I'm saying is, Jared could very easily have a device there. Nathan could have a device.
You could lift the phone and we'd see. You could lift the
Well,
phone
also,
and
I
we'd see.
could technically. What year are we doing this year? I could technically just open up a page
2019
and be looking at it straight here. Such is the advantage of Zoom and my laptop. But I'm not going to do that. Sorry, are we going to go back to last week and the blatant disregard for the rules shown by the quizmaster?
There was no blatant disregard.
I was meant to go second.
No, you weren't.
Yes, I was.
We've got a quiz to start here.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did.
Let's go.
We got a quiz. It's come to us with an actual
random
complaint.
punter on Twitter. That was it. You didn't actually watch it back. In the toss that happened beforehand, Ger versus Nathan, Ger won. Nathan, you have to go first. That's what was said.
No, it said Nathan won.
Yeah, Nathan won the toss.
Yeah.
So you had the opportunity to go first and second, and you decided.
No, you got it wrong. You said Nathan, you win the toss, and you go first.
Like
Nathan
learn the rules of your quiz.
His own shambolic performance.
Learn the rules of your quiz.
Your burner accounts won't get at me. Round one, the boring questions round. Never multiple choice. Question one for you, Adrian. The greatest team in the history of humankind ever, Leinster, were hammered by Munster in the semi-final of the Heineken Cup in 2006. Can you name Munster's starting back row in that final against Biarritz?
Stringen or O'Gara?
No, wrong. Back row.
Back row, sorry.
No. Stringer not playing in the back row.
Listen,
Stringer's only like 5'8". He can't play in the back row. He's a scrum half, Adrian.
Come off.
He's a halfback.
I was actually going for a harder.
Well, that would be a really silly technique.
Wow.
Kidney.
Well, can you imagine? Can you imagine if I got confused between the back row and the back line?
Yeah, it'd be a pylon.
As a rugby man, Adrian,
listen, surely let me answer the question. What was the year again?
No.
Give me the question.
Next.
This is stupid. Come on,
O'Gara. No.
Go on, come off it. Come off it.
The point is gone. Try again. It's 2006. The point is gone.
Stupid. If the point is gone, I'm not trying. That's ridiculous. I'll try again. If the point is back in the mix.
Okay, the point is back in the mix. Go first. The point is back in the mix.
Well, you said 2006.
No.
Right. Quinlan, Wallace, and...
No, you're already wrong. Don't worry. Quinny was on the bench. It was Leamy, Wallace, and Foley. That was the back row. But yeah, playing Peter Stringer in the back row would have been ridiculous for Declan Kidney, obviously. Question one for you, Nathan. Mayo did not win the All-Ireland in 2006, but a Mayo man did top the scoring charts in that summer football championship. Can you name him?
Conor Moore?
Come on.
Correct.
Come on.
What do you mean, come on?
A Mayo question about Mayo Gaelic football for the Mayo man.
Sure,
well, you're always saying that my specialist subjects, I don't do very well on them, so.
Well,
it's not that we're saying that. That's actually the fact.
You'll see now in a sector where your advantages lie. Question one for you. 2006 was the first of Kilkenny's famous 4 in a row. Can you name 6 of the 8 players who started the 06 final against Cork, who also started the 09 final against Tip?
Okay, so 6 of the 8 players, not
players, please. Yeah.
And 09. They win in 09. It's 2010. They get beaten. So you want me the first year of the 4 in a row and the last year of the 4 in a row?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
What are you writing?
Adrian's there. Oh, hold up the answers, kids. Hold up the answers. No, not that one. Not that sheet. This sheet.
Yes, absolutely.
JJ, Jackie, Tommy, Walsh. Do I get 8?
No, you don't.
Shefflin.
can you start? Are these all definites, Jar? First of all,
is this your answer?
Are you reading out your answer, or are you reading down what you're writing down in the page? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
I'm trying to answer your ridiculous question. That's what.
Okay, sorry. So, Jackie is your first answer. Who else did you say there?
JJ missed a year. Did he miss this year?
Come on. He either knows it or he doesn't.
Come on.
Walsh. I'm going to go Tommy Walsh, and I'm going to go Henry Shefflin.
Tommy Walsh, Henry Shefflin. That's 2 of them, yeah.
And Jackie Tyrrell.
And Jackie Tyrrell, that's 3.
I'm going to go started the game.
Yes.
Or played in the game.
Started, he said.
Come on, started is tricky.
Come on now. How long are we going to
Come on, give me a Kenny Legends.
Well, because Aidan Fogarty comes off the bench.
Well, then he didn't start.
Do I say Aidan Fogarty?
Correct.
I'm going to go Aidan Fogarty. Yeah. Hang on.
2 more.
06.
Yes, 2006.
Here, he's out of time. The kids are getting impatient here.
What?
Does Richie Power start?
Yes, he does. 1 more. One more.
The left corner forward who was in studio. I blanked on his name. Come on, it's ridiculous.
Come on, time's almost up.
Give me the left corner forward with the green helmets. Come on.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to say Kavanagh.
No. You didn't get that point. So close.
Michael Kavanagh.
No. The 8 were as follows: Jackie Tyrrell, Tommy Walsh, Derek Ling, Richie Power, Henry Shefflin, Owen Larkin, Eddie Brennan, and Aidan Fogarty. You did not get the point. It's currently Adrian 0, Ger 0, Nathan 1.
You never said Jackie's name there.
I did.
It did, to be fair.
I did. Jackie was first.
That's bollocks.
Round 2. Well, you said JJ, and I basically persuaded you into not saying it. So well done on that. Round 2.
Look what you've done, Jerry. You've made the child cry.
For God's sake, there were people crying here because of you. Round 2 is the Germany World Cup round. The 2006 World Cup's tagline was "Eine Zeit Freunde zu finden," which translated as "a time to make friends." Fittingly, it concluded with Zinedine Zidane headbutting Marco Materazzi after a personal slight. This round will test your knowledge on this tournament. Jerry, you were at this tournament. Huge advantage for you here. Question 2 for you, Adrian. Can you name the unlikely side who snuck through to the quarterfinals of the 06 World Cup, having got past Switzerland on penalties after luckily drawing Tunisia and Saudi Arabia in their group?
I mean, they were hot property around that time, so let's go with Greece.
No, it was
Ukraine.
England.
Ukraine.
What? You broke up there. I said Ukraine. Did that come out as England?
Nathan.
Ukraine, Switzerland is the worst game in the history of the World Cup finals.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah. I'd say, did you watch much football there?
Not really.
Me or Jer?
You were there as well, Nathan, were you?
I was. A mate of mine went to the Ukraine-Switzerland game, and he was only there, I think, for that weekend, and he hadn't a ticket, so obviously it's the World Cup finals. He's in Germany. He wants to go. And I think he paid about 350 quid for a ticket for the match. That was a 0-0 draw, and there may not have been a single shot on target in the entire game.
Jesus. Worth, though. Question 2 for you, Nathan. 2006 became known as a Defenders Tournament, but can you name any knockout fixture that included at least 3 goals? I will include extra time. I won't include penalty shootouts, obviously.
You looking for the score, or are you just looking for the teams?
2 teams, please.
At least 3 goals.
At least 3 goals.
Really?
Not that hard?
No.
Was Italy, Germany 2-0 or 2-1? England, Brazil?
No.
1-0.
Was that 1-0?
Was that
bollocks, I thought it was 2-1.
Was that Ronaldinho's and Seaman?
No, that
Seaman.
was 2002.
What happened in 06 with England?
Oh, they lost to Portugal on
France,
penalties.
Brazil game
Portugal on penalties.
France-Brazil game was 2-1.
Penalties. They lost.
Rooney versus Ronaldo. So there was only 4 answers to this question. You had Argentina 2, Mexico 1. Remember Maxi Rodriguez, wasn't it? That unbelievable goal. Brazil 3, Ghana 0. Spain 1, France 3. And Italy beat Ukraine 3-0.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
Sure. You were in Germany for the summer of 2006, indulging in everything the country... Oh! You got attacked by Paddy O'Shea.
Wow. That's a recreation of Jair in Germany in 2006.
Oh.
Now I know Denny Allenfield.
You indulge in everything the country had to offer, is what I was about to say, in Germany in 2006. So which German star won the award for Best Young Footballer after his performances during the tournament?
Philip Lahm?
No. Anyone?
Lewandowski?
No, he's Polish.
Polish.
Oh, yeah.
2006, Podolski, yeah.
Lucas Podolski, yeah. Round 3, the 06 Ryder Cup round. For the 2006 Ryder Cup, Ireland had the opportunity to bear the beautiful chest of the Celtic Tiger on the world stage, and boy did we take it. This round will test your knowledge on the events of that week. Adrian. Ladies and gentlemen, Ireland stands proud this afternoon was the opening line in English from the opening ceremony at the K Club. Which news presenter
Charlie Violan.
Hey, there you go.
Come on.
I was on it. Get in.
Come on.
What's it like? Every time somebody gets a question right in this quiz, somebody's like, "Come on, could you not just congratulate a colleague on getting a question right?"
But that's a very famous moment.
Yes, it's a very famous moment. If you know the answer,
it was a horrific opening
Ukraine
ceremony.
and whoever it was they were playing in the World Cup quarter-final was also a moment that you were at, and you can't even remember it.
These are all fairly significant things. All these questions, Nathan. Can you name either of the European golfers who brought home 4 points and were the continent's strongest players over the course of that weekend?
Lee Westwood?
Correct. Do you know the other one?
Sergio Garcia.
Sergio Garcia. Question 3 for you, Ger. Garcia was the youngest player on the course that weekend, with only 2 other golfers under the age of 30 involved for either team. Can you name either of them?
Sorry, 2 other golfers under 30 from either team.
Mm-hmm.
It's 14 years ago.
2006, 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's about 40 now. Oof.
Gonna need an answer.
Nathan Googling there, just to make himself look knowledgeable.
Ian Poulter?
No.
G-Mac? G-Mac
No.
didn't play.
Paul Casey?
Paul Casey and another European player. Luke Donald.
That's a shy question.
Well, you got it wrong. Question 4. You there's very rarely a pile-in when somebody gets a question wrong. There's just always a pile-in when somebody gets a question right in this quiz. But positivity gets killed in this 25-minute segment we do every week. Round 4 is the 2006 stuff that's not sport round. A classic of the genre, a fan favourite. This round will test your knowledge on stuff you should know that's not related to sports. Adrian, question 4 for you. Which film shocked the movie world in 2006, unexpectedly beating Brokeback Mountain to the Best Picture award at the Oscars?
Look, I'm faking not knowing while having looked this up
No,
yesterday.
I haven't a clue, honestly. Have you any idea? She's 18 months old. She doesn't have a clue. Same clue as I have. I'm going to go with no idea. Gladiator.
No, it's not. Anyone?
Drive?
No. A Crash. Close.
Ah, Crash. That's what I was thinking of.
Nathan, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas was published in 2006. Who wrote it? What's that face for, Jar?
Hey, come on. That's faces for like this guy's quite famous.
Take that point off.
Come on, deduct a point.
Yes, stop this or take the point.
Deduct a point.
No, that's ridiculous.
I
That's
thought
the same as
maybe it
Googling.
was. I thought maybe it was in the bookshelf above me there.
You can't own. If he gets this question correct,
Come on, you either know this or you don't.
No, I don't.
Or he gets the point taken off.
No, I don't have it. I don't have it.
Jar?
John Boyne.
Correct. Jar, YouTube was sold to Google in 2006, but can you tell me which footballer featured in the Nike Touch of Gold ad, which was the first video to hit 1 million views?
I thought you were going to ask for how much. It was 1.3 billion. Which footballer featured in the Touch of Gold ad for Nike?
Nike. First video to reach 1 million views on YouTube.
Ronaldinho?
Correct.
Boom.
Again, a correct answer met with eerie silence in this chat.
Ger,
1 point.
Well done,
Nathan, thank you, Nathan, for spreading the positivity. Nathan, 2 points.
Well, there's children involved now, so I feel I should be on my best behaviour.
Thank you. Round 4 is the fun magic number round.
Throw away.
She can't, happily.
Let's get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. Of course,
Daddy's not doing very well.
If you've got kids looking at home, listening at home, Nathan doesn't care about you. It's only Adrian's kid really that he gives a shit about. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of drivers' championships won by Lewis Hamilton in his career to date, plus the number of professional wins enjoyed by Podrick Mannion throughout his career to date, plus the number in the world rankings that Ireland currently occupies in rugby, plus the number in the world rankings that the Republic of Ireland currently occupies in football. Your 30 seconds expire when Snatcher sings Bright Shiny Beats.
What's the last question there? Yeah, fire ahead there. Yeah, what's the last question?
Where are Ireland in the football world rankings?
And the second question, is that PGA Tour, European Tour, everything all in?
Everything, professional wins, everything, yeah.
Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide, Podrick Mannion. Number of drivers' championships won by Lewis Hamilton. Number of pro wins by Podrick Mannion. The number in the world rankings that Ireland currently occupies in rugby, and then the number in football. Your time is up, by the way. Nathan, what have you got?
61.
61.
Box.
Adrian's got 74.
72. 72.
The answer is 75. Adrian gets 2 points. Ger gets 1 point. Nathan gets nothing. Let's go through those. The number of drivers.
Jesus, Nathan, what happened to you?
What happened to you? The number of drivers' championships won by Lewis Hamilton is 6. The number of professional wins won by Podrick Mannion is 31.
20.
Really?
Yeah. The number in the world rankings, because it doesn't necessarily need to be European Tour or PGA Tour, does it? It says it on his Wikipedia. The number in the world rankings that Ireland currently occupies in rugby. Four. And
yeah.
Ireland are 34th in the world in football.
I have 34th. God
Good
damn
for you.
it.
How you get there, though, is it? Isn't that the point?
Did you get any of them right, Adrian?
I got the Ireland rugby ranking correct. And other than that, you're a big fat zero. But as I said, doesn't matter how you get there.
On to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Dennis Irwins from the Dennis Rodmans. It's the note theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round, and there will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start.
Who's going first?
We're going to start with the person with the highest number of points, which is Adrian, with 3 points.
I thought he only 2. Did he get it? Did he actually get anything right?
Sharon.
He got Sharon right earlier in the quiz.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Sharon.
You're on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So what's Adrian's on 3, Jer's on
2, and Nathan's on 2. So I tossed the coin earlier to decide whether it was
I'll go first.
Nathan.
I'll go first.
And
Sure.
Look at that. Nathan won the toss again.
No.
Can I just ask a question? Now that we're looking
That's
into
5-0. He's won the toss. No.
Now that we're looking into Adrian Barry's house, is your camera crooked or is the picture behind you crooked?
The camera, I would assume. No, I mean, both could be true. Is that?
Oh yeah, that's much better. No. All right.
Listen, let's not worry too much about it.
You ready?
I'm ready to go. Hit me.
Your 40 seconds starts now. Name the first pick of last week's NFL draft.
Joe Burrow.
Correct. Who is second behind Alan Shearer in the all-time Premier League goal scoring list?
Thierry Henry.
No, Wayne Rooney. In which US state is Whistling Straits Golf Club, Nathan?
Wisconsin.
Correct. Name the most expensive player ever bought by a Premier League club.
Paul Pogba.
Correct. Who are the All-Ireland Club Senior Football Champions?
Curfin.
Correct. Who were runners-up in Euro 2016?
What?
Who were runners-up in Euro 2016?
France.
Correct. Where will the next Rugby World Cup take place?
Said Portugal.
What?
Where will the next Rugby World Cup take place?
South Africa.
No, France. Who won the Rugby World Cup last year, Ger?
South Africa.
Correct. And finally, in what division are Coventry City?
Finally,
time is up.
League One.
Correct. So, Jerry, you finish up on 4 points. Nathan, you finish up on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. You finished up on. And
no, that shouldn't be. He gave a wrong answer. He gave a wrong answer. He stalled.
He got Portugal wrong.
This is wrong.
I didn't. I said France.
This is wrong.
France.
You said Portugal.
Portugal won the Euro.
You said Portugal.
George Hamilton would not stand for this level of bullshit.
No one would stand for this.
What's the issue here? What's the issue?
Darcy would have.
He said Portugal. He said Portugal.
Wrong.
Did you?
I said France. No,
he said
I
a second answer.
I went
Portugal.
France.
Yes.
I was about to say France.
Not even joking. Not even joking.
I was about to say Portugal.
You should have been deducted a
I nearly
point.
said Portugal, but I said France. I went,
yeah.
You're allowed to
you would have
say
missed the next one, George. You would have missed the next one. You would have come back to me. This, honestly.
Sorry. That's not the biggest scandal in this. How did Adrian know the first pick from last week's draft?
Because we were talking to Mike Carlson about it on last Friday's show.
Right. Lads, it's been
the biggest scandal is you winning this, having given the
incorrect
answer to a question.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
That point up.
No. The other issue, the bigger issue, where my confusion was, I couldn't hear the questions because you wouldn't shut up.
No, we only started talking after you gave an incorrect answer.
Exactly.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
You can listen back.
This is 100%
my good friend who was tweeting in, I'm sure will point out that I went and then went France.
No, you said Portugal.
Excuse me, you got the whole of Portugal out. You said Portugal, and then you went, France.
I didn't. I most definitely didn't.
Look, listen,
if
that truly happened, I will issue an apology next week and we will rescind your title.
Oh, no, that's not what you used to myself and George.
We should.
I can't.
We should be in a tiebreak.
No,
we should be in a tiebreak situation.
I know.
I tell you what. He's the winner.
I heard
he's the winner. There's no point. Next week's too late. No, hang on a second. He is the winner if you look back and you do it. But we should have the contingency situation of having at least a tiebreak, and we all know who's going to win the toss anyway. So why don't we just do the tiebreak?
Yeah, but I should be involved in that tiebreak because you would have missed the next one.
You should not.
I'm back in. Like, this is ridiculous.
Because where's the next one?
This is like the irony here.
Where's the next one? I would have got that.
Okay, can I just get your attention for a moment, please?
The irony here, considering last week we have proof that Ger shouldn't have got to go second.
Nonsense.
No, that was your fault. Listen. What we're gonna do now is
we're gonna finish it there.
What we're gonna do now is we're all gonna shut up and we're gonna come back next week and we're gonna do it again.
Talk to you then.
And if I was wrong, I'll hold my hands up. You will get over it.
You weren't.
Nathan, congratulations.
No.
Back champion. Champ. It's firmly in the rear view mirror. That's a crappy
suggestion.
I won last week.
Suggestion.
So he's not back.
And I need to be involved in this, by the way. But here's a suggestion. Why don't you run off the playoff now?
No.
And if you go back and review it,
there was no wrongdoing.
No, because you can hold the playoff. You can hold the playoff in reserve if it turns out, which it won't, because he said Portugal, that Nathan is actually correct here.
No, I didn't
massive
say
decision is
Portugal.
final.
I was about to say Portugal. But also, I presume when Owen is listening back, he will take into account that it was impossible to hear the questions because these two wouldn't shut up.
Yeah, and this is
only after you said Portugal.
This is like you brought this upon yourselves.
Okay. I'm muting you all.
A bit of respect for the quizmaster would go a long way.
You're all on mute now. I just want to say thanks very much for watching and listening this week. Congratulations to Nathan on winning the quiz. Ger did win last week. I will issue an apology this week were there to be any evidence of wrongdoing. See you next week on the Coffee Quiz. Thank you for joining us.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball. Oh, wow.